Chapter 3758. Roar. Sensing the terrifying imprisoning power within these inscriptions, Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. These inscriptions were clearly designed to deal with Dao sect cultivators. The true essence within his meridians was imprisoned, and he couldn't activate it at all. Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly displayed his transcendence golden body, and his figure rapidly expanded, wanting to break through the binding of these inscriptions. Rumble. Xiaohua's transcendence golden body had just appeared when the three imperial treasures let out a rumbling sound. The entire space enveloped by multicolored light trembled. Following the trembling, the multicolored light suddenly converged, and the imperial treasures fell at a speed invisible to the naked eye. Xiaohua was caught off guard. Although his transcendence golden body flashed with a dark golden brilliance, wanting to dodge the imperial treasures still fell on Xiaohua's transcendence golden body in the end. The three imperial treasures turned into a complete one at this time, forcefully locking Xiaohua's neck like a shackle. As this shackle fell, immediately thousands of inscriptions mixed with a vast aura were born from the void. It was like a heavenly punishment prison crystal inscription chain, locking Xiaohua's entire body. Oh, the transcendence golden body let out a rare groan, like the snoring of a sleeping demon god. Xiaohua seemed to be angry, and his transcendence golden body madly expanded. However, Zalala the chains made a jerky sound, and the vast aura within the inscriptions tightly bound Xiaohua's transcendence golden body. With Xiaohua's strength, he actually couldn't break free. On the contrary, because it expanded, the inscription chain spun even more crazily, suppressing Xiaohua's heavenly infusion technique and heavenly law's embodiment technique. Under this powerful force, the huge transcendence golden body shrank in circles. Xiaohua was truly extremely shocked. The strength of the three Huangshous was only at the upper fourth level of essence energy, which was also the realm of great confusion. They had yet to reach the level of great grandmaster, who could refine the spirit back to the void. However, this imperial equipment was truly strange. It seemed to have been specially refined to restrain Taoist cultivators. Even Xiaohua, who could kill Taoist cultivators at the fifth level of essence energy, was firmly locked in place. Haha. As expected of someone on the yellow board. Under the joint attack of us three brothers, you still have the strength to struggle. Huangshu saw Xiaohua fall into the trap and laughed towards the sky. Big brother the Confucian cultivator behind Xiaohua landed on the left, with a pleasant surprise on his face. Yellow token to suppress this bastard. This fellow's strength was simply too terrifying. I've never seen a Taoist cultivator who could still struggle after being locked down by the yellow earth lock. Don't worry, third brother. The other Huangshu chuckled and said. Big brother took the little scholar cultivator's Qingquan bag. There were many rare treasures in it. It seems that he obtained them from Song Longzi's inner palace. This Xiaohua's Qingquan bag naturally has many more things. Let's take the Qingquan bag first. Okay, I'll go now. The so-called third brother agreed, and was about to descend. At this time, Xiaohua was already standing on the ground. Using both arms to support himself, the yellow earth lock once again let out a chila sound. However, that was all it took to scare the three Huangshu so much that their expressions changed. The third brother even took half a step back. The Xianhuang token? Who are you? Could it be related to the mysterious yellow list? Xiaohua didn't withdraw his transcendence golden body. After hearing this, his face turned cold and he asked coldly. What Xianhuang list? I don't know. Huangshu simply didn't answer Xiaohua's question. He scolded, Third brother, quickly take his Qingquan bag. Don't talk nonsense with him. With that, Huangshu took out a 3-inch seal from his bosom. The top of the seal was 1 inch long and the bottom was 2 inches long yellow. A golden light flashed from the bottom of the seal. This was the Xianhuang token Huangshu was talking about. Yes, big brother. The triplet brother, who looked exactly like Huangshu, agreed and walked to the front of Xiaohua's golden body. However, before he could raise his hand, the Tengjiao scissors, which had just fallen to the ground, suddenly flew up and slashed his neck faster than lightning. Although countless inscriptions surged out from the bright yellow clothes to resist, these inscriptions were instantly cut in half along with his neck. How is this possible? The triplet brother opened his mouth. and a shadow of his primordial spirit flew out from his neck. He shouted, "How can a cultivator locked by the yellow ground lock still have spiritual power?" Swish! The golden light of the Tung Jiao shears was truly overbearing. The primordial spirit only swayed, but the tail of the Tung Jiao shears swung, and the primordial spirit was also cut into two halves. It was even neater than a piece of white paper cut with scissors. Boom! As the Tung Jiao shears showed off its power, a colorful beam of light suddenly appeared from the left side of the elixir room of the cave residence, and hit the other triplet brother of Huang Shou with lightning speed. The Confucian cultivator screamed, and the inscriptions and noble spirit surging around him were swallowed up by the beam of light. Even the shadow of his primordial spirit was killed by the beam of light before it could escape. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Before Huang Shou's Xianhuang token could be used, his two triplet brothers were killed. Huang Shou couldn't help but look at the source of the beam of light in horror. Unfortunately, the clear eye technique and the divine sense technique were useless. He couldn't see anything at all. However, even if he didn't know that it was Xiaohua's invisible nascent soul, he also knew that the person who came must be related to Xiaohua. He decisively opened his mouth, and a stream of true qi gushed out and fell on the Xianhuang token. Boom! The Xianhuang token suddenly expanded, and emitted a brilliance like the sun. Rumble! Under this sun, two fist-sized green seal characters rushed out from between Xiaohua's eyebrows, and then the heaven and earth chanted. Layers of faint green lightning appeared above Huang Shou's head, and hit him head-on. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, like falling snow melting into water. In the sun-like brilliance of the mysterious yellow token, clusters of inscriptions turned invisible, and streams of awe-inspiring qi were struck into nothingness. Huang Shou was like a bald chicken with plucked feathers, trembling as he stood in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua! Huang Shou couldn't help but beg for mercy. But just as he cried out, the murderous golden light appeared again with a whoosh, and Huang Shou's body was split in half from top to bottom. The nascent soul that had already refined qi and returned to spirit was immediately killed by the lightning as soon as it appeared. Fellow Taoist, you were a bit careless. Green-robed Xiaohua put away the Kunlun mirror and looked at Xiaohua, who had already put away his Dharma body, and was looking down at the so-called yellow earth lock. Alas! Xiaohua sighed and shook his head slightly. Yes. This Xiao only thought that only I had the luck to enter Senior Tsonglang's cave, but I didn't expect that others would also occasionally step on dog shit. However, if these three Confucian cultivators who are only at the 4th level of origin energy want to sneak attack this Xiao, they are still too weak. Haha! Green-robed Xiaohua knew that although his appearance had changed the situation of the battle and killed the three Confucian cultivators, he also knew that even without him, Xiaohua's soul technique would have been able to succeed, so he simply smiled and asked, "Do you still need this poor Taoist's help?" "No need. Fellow Taoist, go set up the formation to break the restriction. These three Confucian cultivators should be following behind us. Since they are here and Zhai Xingzi and the others haven't yet, Zhai Xingzi and the others won't come." Xiaohua shook his head. "Wait until I see the memories of these three people, then I will know the cause of this matter." "Okay." Green-robed Xiaohua agreed and didn't say anything else. Xiaohua's soul thread reached out from between his eyebrows and landed between Huang Shou's eyebrows. After a moment, he looked at Huang Shou's two triplets and unconsciously frowned. Strange. These three people's memories, why do they have traces of being erased? Apart from knowing that these three people are called Huang Shou, Huang Zhen, and Huang Ji, this Xiao can't see their origins at all. However, I heard Huang Shou mention the mysterious yellow proclamation just now. Moreover, the imperial tool is called the Yellow Earth Lock, and the imperial tool similar to the seal is called the mysterious yellow token. These three people must be related to the mysterious yellow proclamation. Just as he thought of this, the Confucian cultivator Xiaohua smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist, think about it more. Star-Lord Palace's Gusichiron is called Gusichiodi. Huang Shou, Huang Zhen, and Huang Ji have the surname Huang, and the given name Shouxinji. Isn't this the surname Tian Di Xian Huang in the 1,000-character classic? Isn't this the surname Tian Di Xian Huang in the 1,000-character classic?" "Yes, fellow Taoist, you're right. I understand." Xiaohua sighed. Previously, this Xiao thought that the mysterious yellow proclamation was just a bounty list. I didn't expect that there would be a mysterious yellow token after the mysterious yellow proclamation. It seems that this Xiao has caused trouble. Fellow Taoist, you don't cause trouble, but trouble always provokes you. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua said again. We Confucian cultivators emphasize cooperation and cooperation. Fellow Taoist, you have to think about it more. If you want to run amok on the hidden immortal continent by yourself, I'm afraid it will be difficult. Yes, I understand. You can open this yellow earth lock, Xiao Hua said with a frown. Puff above Xiao Hua's head. A three-colored cloud spurted out and turned into three big hands that fell on the yellow earth lock that imprisoned Xiao Hua. The three big hands turned into inscriptions that fell on the yellow earth lock according to the memories of Huang Shou and the other triplets. These inscriptions flickered and changed from time to time. After a while there was a crisp gotcha sound, and the yellow earth lock split into three and fell in the air. Xiao Hua waved his hand, and the yellow earth lock and the mysterious yellow token both fell into his hand. He carefully looked at them and said in a low voice, "Since there is a yellow earth lock, there should also be a mysterious heaven lock. The yellow earth lock is used to lock Dao cultivators on the yellow proclamation, and the mysterious heaven lock has always been used to lock Dao cultivators on the mysterious proclamation. It seems that there are many immortal palaces on the hidden immortal continent. There is not only one Star-Lord Hall." After speaking, Xiao Hua opened his mouth, and the yellow earth lock and the mysterious yellow token both fell into the hands of Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua also opened his mouth and spat out four-colored true qi to take the two imperial treasures into his body. After Xiao Hua removed the restriction on Fu Jiwen's body, Fu Jiwen stood up and said very embarrassedly, "Disciple was careless." "Thank you, master." Xiao Hua nodded and asked, "What's the matter with these three people?" Chapter 3759. Okay, father understands. Fu Jiwen hurriedly said. Senior Songlongzi's orthodoxy and the Tao of Array are in the cave that disciple went to. Disciple put everything in the Qiankuan bag. When disciple saw that there was nothing left behind and came out, I saw the three cultivators enter the inner cave. The cultivator called Huang Shou captured disciple without saying anything, and wanted to interrogate me about master's whereabouts. However, disciple did not give in, so the two cultivators ambushed me in the air, while Huang Shou waited here for master to come out. What else did the three of them talk about? Xiao Hua asked, "Can you tell the origin of these three people?" "I can't." Fu Jiwen shook his head without hesitation. Other than interrogating disciple, these three people were communicating with each other, as if they were hiding something. If not for master's interrogations, disciple wouldn't even know that this cultivator was called Huang Shou. And Xiao Hua nodded. With a wave of his hand he burned the three corpses with true samadhi fire and took away all the Qiankuan bags. However, after thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua took out another Qiankuan bag and handed it to Fu Jiwen. "This should be Senior Songlongzi's array. You can keep it. This is your own fate." He master, disciple's Tao of Array still needs master to teach me. Isn't disciple's opportunity given by master? Fu Jiwen hurriedly said with a smile. Besides, isn't disciple's thing also master's? Master should first comprehend it, and then pass it on to disciple. And that's fine too. Xiao Hua was not polite and took everything and said, "It's not safe to leave it with you. If master keeps it, no one will be able to find it." Fu Jiwen looked at the pill room again and said with a smile, "Seems like master is also returning from a rewarding journey." "Not at all," Xiao Hua said with a bitter smile. "In the pill room, there is nothing but a few jade bottles. Instead, there are some good things in the herb garden. Let's go, master still needs to borrow your heaven punishment prison crystal to break the seal." "Yes, master." Fu Jiwen nodded and said with a smile, "But master, when will you help disciple with this heaven punishment prison crystal? Isn't this an opportunity? Let's go." Xiao Hua patted Fu Jiwen's head and said with a smile, "Yes, master." Fu Jiwen was overjoyed. When Xiao Hua brought Fu Jiwen into the pill room, he still looked at the entrance of the cave and stared at it for a moment. Since Huang Shou and the other two were able to enter this place, Then Xiaohua and Fujiwen were definitely not the only lucky ones. His previous thoughts were too arbitrary. Perhaps Duanmu Liangsheng, Zhai Xingzi and the others would also come here. Zhai Xingzi and the others were still fine, but if Duanmu Liangsheng were to come, things would be very bad. Therefore, when Xiaohua sent Fujiwen to check the restrictions on the underworld fruit, he also carefully set up the capital star formation in front of the entrance of the medicinal garden. Fortunately, although Longzi had already set up a formation in the space of the medicinal garden, Xiaohua's jade talisman was also set up without expending much magic power. It's better to be safe than sorry. Xiaohua finished setting up the formation, and only then did he relax. He thought to himself, I'll remember these words. In the future he couldn't let his guard down. Anything that could happen would happen. Moreover, it can happen at any time when you are not paying attention. Also, if the origins of Huang Shou and the other two are related to the profound yellow order, then I'll have to be even more careful in the future. The strength I've displayed now is at the upper fourth level of essence energy. Whether it's the Duanmu family or the profound yellow order, the cultivators they sent out are all around the lower fifth level of essence energy. Although Huang Shou and the other two were at the upper fourth level of essence energy, the three of them, together with the yellow earthlock, were able to firmly suppress the late-stage nascent soul cultivators of the Dao sect. Now that I've killed the three of them, I'm afraid that the cultivators who come in the future will all be at the upper fifth level of essence energy. Our days are getting worse and worse. Chirp chirp. Xiaohua's mind was full of worries. Just as he returned to the medicinal garden, Little Silver and Xiaogua immediately flew over. Xiaogua's face was red and cute. With a wave of her hand, a large amount of spirit herbs and spirit fruits landed in Xiaohua's hands. Not bad, not bad. Xiaohua put away the things and patted Xiaogua's head. He smiled and praised. You two are really capable. Hurry up and go. Keep up the good work and bring everything back home. Chirp chirp. Little Silver chirped cheerfully, and swiftly rushed to a medicinal field protected by a restriction. He bit down with his sharp teeth, and it wasn't long before the restriction was broken. Then Xiaogua landed in the medicinal field. With a wave of her hands, a dark green halo fell on the spirit herbs, and the intact spirit herbs slowly flew out of the ground. Seeing that the two little ones were busy beyond words, Xiaohua flew over to the yellow springs. At that moment, Fujiwen had already been looking at it for a long time. When he saw Xiaohua come over, he hurriedly said in a low voice, Shifu, this restriction should be called a boundary. It's extremely powerful. I'm afraid this disciple can't help Shifu. Isn't it good that the boundary is powerful? Xiaohua smiled. How much longer do you need to use the heavenly punishment prison crystal? For more hours. Fujiwen thought for a moment, then said, but Shifu, in my opinion, even if we use the heavenly punishment prison crystal, I'm afraid we won't be able to break this boundary. After all, the boundary is too big, and it's different from the restriction on the jade case from before. It doesn't seem to be actively attacking. Shifu already knew this, Xiaohua said indifferently. Go take a look elsewhere first. Not only are there a lot of spirit herbs in this medicinal field, the spirit gathering arrays on each field are different as well, which will be extremely useful for you to comprehend arrays. Also, memorize them well and tell Shifu about them in detail later. Yes, Shifu. Fujiwen's eyes lit up, and he agreed to fly elsewhere. On the path of formations, Fujiwen and Xiaohua were in a different situation. Fujiwen had seen plenty of formation diagrams, spirit formations, and essence formations, but he had never received any real guidance. He had only seen a few real formations. Xiaohua, on the other hand, had a very high starting point. He had started with innate divine restrictions, such as the capital stars array, but he was very lacking in the flexible use of ordinary magic arrays. What the two of them lacked was something Longzi could teach them. Just as Xiaohua said, there was a huge spirit gathering array on this medicinal field, and each field had a different spirit gathering array according to the different spirit herbs and their habits. The spirit gathering arrays were similar in nature, but the details were very different. This was the use of arrays. When Xiaohua entered the Misty Mountain Bewildering Array, he was also very emotional. He could see through the nature of these bewildering arrays at a glance, but he didn't know how to set them up. There were many spirit-gathering arrays in the entire medicinal field. Not only were they useful to Fujiwen, but even Xiaohua himself would benefit a lot from comprehending them. After sending Fujiwen away, Xiaohua flew around the restriction for a long time. He discussed with the green-robed Xiaohua several times, and finally finalized all the details. Seeing that it was almost time, Xiaohua stood in the air. Fujiwen had already flown over and took out the heavenly punishment prison crystal, waiting for Xiaohua's order. Shifu seeing Xiaohua standing there with his eyes closed, Fujiwen reminded, "It's almost time." "Okay, put the heavenly punishment prison crystal on the restriction." Xiaohua opened his eyes and said calmly as the magic power in his body accumulated. "Yes." Master Fujiwen looked at some of the heaven's punishment prison crystals that were already surging with rosy clouds. He gently loosened his hand, and the heaven's punishment prison crystals fell towards the barrier below him. Before the heaven's punishment prison crystals touched the barrier, layers of heaven's punishment thunder had already formed. Crackle thunderbolts were born from the void and fell inside the heavenly punishment prison crystal. At the same time, the thunderbolts also affected the barrier. Unfortunately, to Xiaohua and Fujiwen's disappointment, when the thunderbolts fell on the barrier slightly fluctuated with magic power. This fluctuation was like a surging whirlpool, scattering the power of the thunderbolts around the barrier. It didn't produce any counterattack power. Therefore, the heavenly punishment thunder didn't have any intention of attacking the barrier, and only wreaked havoc around the heavenly punishment prison crystal. Shifu seeing that the heavenly punishment prison crystal didn't work, Fujiwen was somewhat embarrassed and said in a low voice. However, Xiaohua seemed to be standing there normally, but all his attention was focused on the point where the heavenly punishment prison crystal's thunderbolts came into contact with the barrier. He was carefully observing the movement of the barrier's magic power and the extension of the force. After the heavenly punishment prison crystal's thunderbolts passed, Xiaohua opened his mouth and said faintly, "Disciple, you're right. This barrier adheres to defense and doesn't attack. It's completely different from the previous restriction. As the saying goes, one can be strong without desires. This barrier is a rare authentic defensive formation. It doesn't attack at all, and only focuses on defense. It's like a defensive cultivator. Because of this, I'm afraid that this barrier can't be completely broken without the strength to pass the tribulation." Fujiwen put away the heavenly punishment prison crystal, and said with a bitter smile, "If that's the case, it seems that only the immortal emperors of the immortal palaces and the patriarchs of the aristocratic families have this cultivation level. Shifu probably can't break the restriction now." Shifu said that to completely break this barrier, one must have the strength to pass the tribulation. Xiaohua laughed mischievously. "But why must Shifu completely break this barrier? If Shifu wants the things inside, Shifu only needs to open a small gap. Disciple understands." Fujiwen finally understood why Xiaohua kept staring at the barrier just now. "How can Shifu help? I'm afraid that with your cultivation level, you won't be able to." Xiaohua thought for a moment. "Shifu is afraid of hurting you if you stay here. You'd better collect everything in this medicinal garden with Xiaogua and Little Silver." "Yes, Shifu." Hearing this, Fujiwen very tactfully flew over. Afterwards, Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent and clapped his hands. Buzz three-colored true qi gushed out and 9 flying swords flew out from the true qi, letting out ear-piercing sword cries. Confucian cultivator Xiaohua's voice came from the flying swords. "Fellow immortal, this little one receives the flying swords and gives fellow immortal a helping hand." "I'll have to trouble fellow immortal." Xiaohua cupped his hands. "This barrier, I'm afraid it won't be easy for me to break through it with my Taoist methods. I'll have to rely on fellow immortal's Confucian cultivator voice." "Good." The sword qi of the 9 flying swords surged and formed a human figure similar to Xiaohua's size. "This little one has already prepared according to fellow immortal Green Robe's words." Chapter 3760. Fellow Soul Cultivator, are you ready? Xiaohua nodded his head and asked again. A dark green brilliance gushed out from between Xiaohua's eyebrows and condensed into the shape of lightning. Xiaohua's voice sounded, "I am also ready." "All right, fellow Taoist Soul Cultivator. You've seen for yourself how powerful this barrier is. Given our current strength, there's no way we'll be able to break through it. Even if we use all of the methods we discussed earlier, we'll only be able to tear open a crack in the barrier in the span of a few breaths. Whether or not we'll be able to obtain the underworld fruit will all depend on you. Haha, fellow Taoist, don't worry. This underworld fruit is related to I's growth. I care about it more than any of you. Xiaohua laughed, his voice faintly coming from the layers of lightning. Do it. Xiaohua ordered. Xiaohua waved his hands, and several sword lights shot into the air. Rumble, a thunderous sound was heard, and 5 colored lightning fell from the sky. It was the Confucian cultivator's 5 chi thunder. The lightning fell and hit the barrier. The barrier was suffused with the color of lightning, like brilliant fireworks, dazzling the entire barrier. 9 heavens divine thunder. Fall. At the same time, the green-robed Xiaohua's voice came from the side of the scholarly cultivator. His shapeless nascent soul rubbed its hands, and the 9 heavens divine thunder was even more vast than the 5 chi thunder. Like a horned dragon, it fell from the sky and rushed toward the barrier. A wave-like fluctuation was set off on the barrier. Protrusions appeared on the barrier along with the lightning snakes, blocking the lightning from all directions. Since fellow Taoists have names, I should also have a name for my lightning and thunder technique. Xiaohua's voice was strange, as if it didn't belong in this world. In my name, I call for thunder, 3 corpses in thunder. Fall. Following the appearance of 3 dark green seal characters in the air, 3 extremely simple and indescribable voices came out from the green seal characters. Hundreds of dark green lightning threads appeared out of thin air. It was fine if the lightning did not appear, but once it did, whether it was the 5 chi righteous thunder or the 9 heavens divine thunder, they all made thunderous sounds. The thunderbolts that were originally pouncing towards the barrier all flew towards the 3 corpses in lightning. Although Xiaohua's 3 primordial spirits all had the ability to control lightning, he had never used all 3 lightning. Today, in order to break the barrier in a short period of time, he used it, but he didn't expect that there would be such a reaction. Xiaohua was shocked and hurriedly waited with rapt attention. If there were any changes, he would immediately isolate himself. Rumble, the green light of the 3 corpses in thunder shone brightly and intertwined with the 5 chi righteous thunder, and the 9 heavens godly thunder. In the blink of an eye, the green light converged and formed a thunder that was condensed from lightning threads. Then, the 5 chi righteous thunder turned into 5 colored lightning that circled around the green seal script lightning threads. In the end, the 9 heavens godly thunder turned into hundreds of thunderbolts that roamed around the 5 chi righteous thunder like flames. Good. Xiaohua's eyes lit up. He knew that the 3 types of lightning naturally merged together. As Xiaohua rejoiced in his heart, the ball of lightning that turned into the size of a wicker basket fell on top of the barrier. An extremely low muffled sound rang out. The ball of lightning actually sank into the barrier. Immediately, the barrier gave birth to a strong vibration. Although the sound wasn't loud, it seemed as if the entire space was shaking. Right now, Xiaohua's heart stirred. He rubbed his hands together and several fiery red brilliance rushed into the air. The sound of a bird's cry resounded through the entire space. The Golden Crow Execution Immortal Demon Formation was activated by Xiaohua. Not only was an extremely hot heat generated in the air, a powerful suction force was also generated from the demon formation. Wherever the suction force passed, the heaven and earth origin chi in the entire space was swept away. Immediately, a golden crow that was several zhang in size condensed in the heat wave and origin chi. Although this golden crow wasn't too complete, its desolate and unruly aura immediately filled the entire space. Fall. Xiaohua pointed his finger. The golden crow, like a setting sun in the vast sky, fell towards the place where the ball of lightning previously set off ripples. Another bird's cry rang out. On top of the barrier, the light of lightning hadn't faded away, and the light of fire was born again. A several chi deep dent appeared. Admittedly, Fujiwen wasn't at the side, but when he saw Xiaohua cast the spell, he immediately came to the side to watch. He saw that Xiaohua's magic power was practically sky-high, but this barrier was even more tenacious. He couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. In his heart, he became a bit more eager for the Zhonglangzi's orthodoxy and formation. Good, Xiaohua's complexion was the same as usual. He wasn't dispirited because his two methods didn't tear apart the barrier. He still followed the prescribed order. With a wave of his hand, the soaring dragon scissors transformed into a golden flood dragon. The dragon's tail flung out. Kite accurately chopped at the place where the dent was. Afterwards, without waiting for the soaring dragon scissors to be retracted, the voice of the Confucian cultivator Xiaohua was heard in the air again. Watch me. Woo-woo in the void, hundreds of awe-inspiring chi pillars appeared with a loud bang. A dazzling imperial weapon flew out from the sword light. It was the imperial weapon that was originally called the Imperial Star Stab, but now it was called the Dismal Soul-Injuring Imperial Weapon. The star passing leads the spirit, the star falling injures the soul, the dim injures the soul, the spirit injures the soul. With the noble spirit hit the enchantment, the whole enchantment shook again. The impact pulled the enchantment to the extreme, but in Xiaohua's eyes, the enchantment's tough brilliance was still thin and did not collapse under the three methods of the Confucian soul. Kunlun mirror. Xiaohua shouted. Green-robed Xiaohua was already prepared. He shouted loudly, "As you wish." But then, a light pillar once again descended from the sky and hit the connection of the thin threads with a loud bang. The strange thing was, before the crack on the barrier appeared, the Kunlun mirror's light pillar had already penetrated through. Good. Soul cultivator Xiaohua shouted. Thousands of soul threads rushed into Xiaohua's forehead and followed the Kunlun mirror's light pillar through the collapsing barrier and instantly wrapped around the underworld fruit. Sizzle. A strong corrosive sound came from the water of the yellow spring. Unfortunately, Xiaohua's soul threads had already been tempered by the sea of blood in the netherworld's eye of Million Meng Mountains. This was the water of the yellow spring, and it was far inferior to the netherworld sea. The soul threads wrapped around the underworld fruit, and in the blink of an eye, they retreated back into the mysterious dark cloud. Just when the underworld fruit touched Xiaohua's mysterious dark cloud, the heavenly runes and earth deed of the entire dark cloud emitted a strong brilliance. When the brilliance landed on the underworld fruit, the patterns on the entire fruit and leaves suddenly changed, producing an obscure rumbling sound. In just a few breaths of time, the underworld fruit penetrated through the heavenly runes and earth deed of the underworld fruit, and rushed into the mysterious dark cloud. What was even stranger was, just when the underworld fruit rushed into the soul, a thumb-sized root fell off from the underworld fruit. How could Xiaohua not know that this was the root of the underworld fruit? He immediately sent it into the dark side of the dimension. However, before he could take a look, he heard a shrill sound that sounded like the wailing of ghosts and howling of wolves. The entire mysterious dark cloud was rolling violently. It's done. I'll go back first. Soul cultivator Xiaohua's expression changed greatly. The green light on Xiaohua's forehead disappeared, and he returned to the mysterious dark cloud. As soon as the underworld fruit entered the mysterious dark cloud, it immediately transformed into an infinitely tall tree that soared into the sky. Moreover, through the layers of spirit heavens, the leaves and the fruit produced a heavenly sound that sounded like the green seal script. The heavenly runes and earth deed of the underworld fruit emitted a strange fragrance that penetrated through all the spirit heavens. Amidst the heavenly sound, streams of netherworld water flowed out from the underworld fruit. Runes that were even more ancient and simpler than the green seal script rushed out from the netherworld water and disappeared into the mysterious dark cloud. Under the scouring of these runes, Xiaohua's soul gradually underwent new changes. Soul cultivator Xiaohua entered the mysterious dark cloud. Seeing so many changes, he knew that there was no big problem. Only then did he feel relieved. Ao, with a dragon roar, the little white dragon swam its huge body and appeared beside Xiaohua. It greedily sniffed the rare fragrance in the world. Xiaohua received the soul cultivator's perception and knew that the underworld fruit was fine. He was overjoyed and said loudly, "Fellow Taoists, it's done. Thank you for your help." Good. Congratulations, fellow Taoists. Whether it was the scholarly cultivator Xiaohua or the soul cultivator Xiaohua, they all praised. At this time, looking at the barrier again, the crack that rushed out from the Kunlun mirror had already been repaired. The depression caused by the joint attack of the primordial spirits was also repaired by the other parts of the barrier in just a moment. All of this was like a white horse galloping through a crack. It was exactly as Xiaohua had thought. Of course, it was only at this moment. Not to mention a white horse. Even a white tiger would be pulled down by Xiaohua. The underworld fruit was gone, so what if the barrier was repaired? Huh. Congratulations, congratulations. Xiaohua smiled and cupped his hands. The scholarly cultivator Xiaohua and the green-robed Xiaohua both put away the primordial and magic arrays, took the magic tools and imperial tools, and returned to the middle and lower dantian respectively. Seeing Xiaohua talking to himself for a long time, and seeing the sword-shaped Xiaohua turn into true energy and enter Xiaohua's head, Fujiwen flew into the air and bowed. Congratulations, master. Haha, congratulations too. Xiaohua laughed. You don't need this thing. You'd better look at what's in the medicinal field. Disciple knows. With master's support, disciple doesn't need to worry about medicinal pills and cultivation methods. Fujiwen replied. The higher master's cultivation, the happier disciple is. Right, did master use the imperial tool just now? Yes, that imperial tool was obtained by master at the Jade Pavilion conference. Once used, it must kill. Xiaohua nodded. If it's not a critical moment, master won't use it. The master really has a lot of secrets. Fujiwen understood as soon as he heard this, and said with a smile. Let's go. Don't say so many useless things. Take away the entire medicinal field, that's the real deal. Xiaohua waved his big sleeves and flew towards Xiaoguo and Little Silver. Ah, take it all away. Fujiwen was shocked. Won't master leave some here? If others come in later, it won't be a wasted trip. We can't give them the chance to disturb the peace of Senior Songlongzi's cave abode. Xiaohua said in all seriousness and awe-inspiring righteousness. Only by cleaning up this place will we not attract the covetous eyes of others. Yes, master. Fujiwen curled his lip and hurriedly flew after him. The two of them took Xiaoguo and Little Silver, and it took them several days to put all the spirit herbs into the space. Then the two of them looked at the clean medicinal field, clapped their hands, and flew back to the cave abode with smiles on their faces. Chapter 3761. Hihi Xiaohua stepped out of the alchemy room, looked at the empty cave, and said to Fujiwen with a smile, Senior Songlongzi is really interesting. He placed all the treasures in the maze and left nothing in his cave, making people feel disappointed as soon as they entered. Is this also a kind of test? Who knows? Maybe he was afraid that too many cultivators would come in and doubt each other. Fujiwen blinked and said, Master, since there is nothing in the cave, we should go out, right? If Senior Dao ran and the others are empty-handed, they are either still wandering in the maze or waiting outside the maze. Don't worry. Xiaohua's gaze fell on the jade rui on the cloud bed and the jade shelves around it, and said with a smile, We won't be coming to Senior Songlongzi's cave in the future, and other people probably won't be able to enter. It's a waste to leave these furnishings here. Why don't we take them all away and show them off in the cave when I open the cave? Ah, no way, master. Fujiwen completely understood Xiaohua's stinginess. Go, take the jade shelves over there and the things in the cave that can be taken away. Xiaohua ordered without saying anything, and he directly turned around and went into the alchemy room, presumably to see if there was anything else that could be taken away. Fujiwen was helpless. He hurriedly entered another immortal's cave and put away the jade table, and so on. When he came out again, he saw that all the jade shelves and jade chairs had disappeared from Xiaohua's side. Xiaohua was walking to the side of the cloud bed. He raised his hand to take the jade table and jade scepter on it. Oh, something is wrong. Just when Xiaohua was about to pick up the jade rui, a realization came from his mind. There is nothing in the entire cave. Why would there be a jade rui on the jade table for no reason? Could it be that there is something strange about this jade rui? No, thinking about it now, this jade rui was quite strange. With Xiaohua's stingy temperament, once he saw that there was nothing in the cave, he immediately lost interest in the jade rui. Even Huang Shou and the other two didn't seem to see it. Moreover, this jade rui was placed so casually. Could it be that Songlongzi left it behind before he left? This jade rui. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Xiaohua withdrew his magic power and carefully examined the jade table, jade rui, and the cloud bed. Unfortunately, when Fujiwen came over, Xiaohua found nothing. Fujiwen was very obedient, and knew that this was not the time for him to speak, so he stood at the side in silence. Strange, Xiaohua said again and floated onto the cloud bed. Sitting on it, he looked around again but didn't find anything. Xiaohua looked around the cave again, and when he saw that the jade rui was pointing at a distance, his heart was moved. He concentrated for a moment, and then released his divine sense again. Unfortunately, his divine sense still couldn't leave his body, so Xiaohua had no choice but to release his soul. When his soul swept over the stone wall where the jade rui was pointing, Xiaohua's body shook and he hurriedly shouted, "Fujiwen, quickly go to the entrance of the cave and protect your master. Remember, don't look at your master." "Yes, master." Fujiwen was shocked, and immediately floated to the entrance of the cave. With his back facing Xiaohua, he looked outside the cave with a serious expression. Xiaohua took a deep breath, released his soul, and slowly scanned the stone wall in the distance. He saw that the jade rui was pointing at a place that was invisible to the naked eye, but his soul could see that there were 13 ants. Yes, they were ants. One of the world's most lowly little things, and now they were arranged in a strange formation. Each of them looked different, and they were crawling on the stone wall. However, these ants were different from the ones Xiaohua usually saw. These ants seemed to have small protrusions on their backs, like wings. It was clear that Songlongzi left behind the jade rui, and sealed his divine sense and Buddhist sense, for no other reason than to not let others easily see these 13 ants that seemed to be able to fly. When Xiaohua's soul came in contact with these ants, a grand aura immediately entered his mind. These ants, what are they? Why does Senior Songlongzi treasure them so much? Xiaohua sat down cross-legged, and released his soul again. Starting from the first ant, he saw the small ant's antennae and black shell gradually become clear, and that kind of vast aura became more and more intense. Boom! With a loud sound, the ant crawled up, and the whole ant became huge. A primordial chaos appeared from the ant's body, and immediately submerged Xiaohua's soul. A very strange cultivator came out from the ant, and turned into a 10,000 zhang tall Dharma body. A voice like the sound of heaven came out from the cultivator's mouth. The path of heaven began in the primordial chaos. Along with this voice, Xiaohua's figure became illusory again, and the galaxy in his eyes reappeared. The strange star power penetrated the 10,000 layers of restrictions, and fell on Xiaohua's body. Obscure fluctuations came out from Xiaohua's body, and fell into the stone wall and the maze. The entire maze of Misty Mountain gave birth to strange fluctuations with Xiaohua's comprehension. Fujiwen, who was guarding the entrance of the cave, was the first to bear the brunt. The heavenly book in his body flew out as soon as it came into contact with the fluctuations. The comprehension in the stone wall before was born from his heart. Fujiwen knew this was a chance, so he didn't dare to be negligent. He sat down cross-legged, and hundreds of inscriptions formed a formation talisman. Inside the maze, the confused Zhang Daoran, who was running around in confusion, suddenly came into contact with the fluctuations, and his body trembled rapidly. "Guard," he just said this, and immediately sat down cross-legged, which made his disciples shocked. Then, without waiting for them to take out their magic weapons, the other late nascent soul stage cultivator, Reverend Han, also showed a happy face, and hurriedly said, "You don't need to guard, quickly cultivate. There's a big change in the maze, and there's a comprehension of the way of heaven then." Reverend Han also closed his eyes to comprehend the fluctuations, and all the disciples also sat around the two, cultivating without saying anything. Zhang Daoran, Sun Kong Shangren, Zhai Xingzi, and the others were the same. Only Gusiqiodi and Gongshu Isan sensed something different, and hurriedly accompanied Zhai Xingzi to comprehend. As for what they would gain, only Songlongzi would know. As for Duanmu Liangsheng, under the fluctuations, the maze was filled with an irresistible power of the way of heaven. Although he was angry, he didn't dare to act rashly. He could only close his eyes, wait for his heart to calm down, and carefully comprehend. The 13 ants were the 13 realms, and also the 13 supernatural powers. They involved formations, pill refinement, weapon refinement, Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, body cultivation, comprehension, and the way of heaven. The supernatural powers inside were very heterogeneous, and even Xiaohua, who had 10 primordial spirits, was amazed. In the beginning, Xiaohua examined them one by one, but in the end, Xiaohua simply divided his soul consciousness into 10 parts. Aside from Bodhi, who was in seclusion, the other primordial spirits followed Xiaohua's mind to comprehend. In the end, Xiaohua understood that most of the 13 ants were created by Songlongzi, a tribulation-passing cultivator, while a small portion was accumulated by Songlongzi. Songlongzi himself didn't cultivate, and these, Xiaohua accepted them one by one. Enlightenment ants. After an unknown amount of time, Xiaohua slowly opened his eyes, looked at the ants that had disappeared, and said in a low voice, I'm afraid Senior Songlongzi's true legacy? What I obtained in the alchemy room, and what Fujiwen obtained from the other side of the cave, compared to this, TSK, it's insignificant. Who would have thought that the Tao legacy of a tribulation-passing cultivator would be carried on a small ant? A world in a flower, a spring and autumn in a leaf. Senior Songlongzi, I didn't expect you to be so proficient in Buddhism as well. With that thought, Xiaohua's body suddenly trembled, and his eyes flashed with shock. Senior Songlongzi left behind such a legacy as a tribulation-passing cultivator, but the spiritual sense and other secret techniques within it don't seem to be as powerful as the secret techniques Do Shanjun gave me. What cultivation base does Do Shanjun have? Could he be a grand ascension stage cultivator? Xiaohua's countless thoughts turned into questions in the end. These questions could only be buried deep in his heart, and he couldn't reveal them to anyone. Do Shanjun's identity could only be revealed by Do Shanjun himself, and if Xiaohua revealed even the slightest hint of doubt, Do Shanjun wouldn't hesitate to kill him. After thinking for a moment, Xiaohua floated down from the bed of clouds. The jade table and the jade scepter were taken into his space. However, when Xiaohua was about to take the bed of clouds away with a flick of his sleeve, Xiaohua was shocked. The bed of clouds seemed to be connected to the stone wall, not moving in the slightest. Forget it. Xiaohua smiled. I've gained a lot today, so I'll leave the cloud bed here. In the instant that Xiaohua carved the cloud bed, the fluctuations of the heavenly Tao within the misty mountain bewildering formation instantly disappeared, and a deafening sound rang out. All of the cultivators who were trapped in the bewildering formation saw a flash of light in front of them, and they could vaguely see that it was a rather large cave abode. Leaving aside the fact that everyone opened their eyes from their meditation, they were ecstatic to find that they were facing Songlongzi's real immortal's cave. Xiaohua walked down from the cloud bed and frowned. He sensed the sounds and changes in the maze inside the immortal's cave, and then walked behind Fujiwen. The talismans around Fujiwen's body were still fluttering, but looking at them, they were much more advanced than before. Not bad. Xiaohua smiled to himself, then pinched his fingers to calculate. He raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, Damn it, it took me 3 years to comprehend the bewildering formation. These 3 years have been very fulfilling. Master Fujiwen put away the inscriptions and jumped up. Congratulations, Master. Hee, congratulations to you too. Your heavenly book seems to have been completely condensed? Xiaohua asked with a smile as he floated Fujiwen up. Master, with your help, it has been condensed to 90%. Fujiwen respectfully said. As long as this disciple accumulates a little, I estimate that this disciple will be able to enter the Great Confucian realm within 3 years. Good. Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, I'm very pleased to have such a disciple. Fujiwen did some calculations and said with a smile, Master, we've been here for more than 3 years, let's go out early. Okay. Xiaohua nodded and led Fujiwen towards the entrance of the cave. Chapter 3762. 100,000 miles away from the misty mountain maze, there was a place with dangerous mountains and rivers. The mountains were tens of thousands of feet high, and the rivers were majestic. There were layers upon layers of mountains, and the rivers were raging. The most eye-catching thing was the 5 strange hills. The hills looked like 5 monstrous beasts. They were either lying down, standing, curled up, or flying. In the middle of the hills, there was a head that could be faintly seen. Although the faces of the heads could not be seen clearly, there was a strange aura coming from the hills. This aura covered 1,000 miles, and within this 1,000 miles, there was no sign of life. Between the hills was a huge river. This surging river brought with it yellow sand as it poured down from the distant mountains. After passing through the hills, the yellow river had a dark red color. Above the hills, gusts of desolate wind swirled in the air. The red clouds that filled the sky seemed to be falling from the sky, pressing down extremely low. A kind of pressure that suffocated the earth came from the clouds. Woo-woo, hoo-hoo. Other than the sound of the river, there was only the whimper of the cold wind. There was no other sound in the sky. Swoosh swoosh. At some unknown time, snowflakes larger than goose feathers began to fall from the red clouds. They seemed to be silent, but every time they swept across the chilly wind, there would be an indescribable fluctuation that gradually filled the world. Seeing that the mountains and rivers were about to be covered by the snow, a demonic cloud about 10 feet in size flew over. However, this demonic cloud only flashed through the snow and didn't stop at all. After flying for 1,000 miles over the hills, the demonic cloud suddenly turned around. When a powerful demonic sense swept across the hills and river, it stopped again. The demonic cloud dispersed, revealing a well-built demonic beast. This demonic beast was about 10 feet in size. A pair of withered yellow eyes revealed surprise, and the antlers on top of his head were very eye-catching. Wasn't this the Stag King? A halo appeared in the Stag King's eyes. It expanded like ripples, and when it landed in the nearby space, the goose feather-sized snowflakes stopped in midair. In the blink of an eye, the space within 1,000 feet was covered by this halo. Boom! Unfortunately, it was only a few breaths. The aura between the hills couldn't be suppressed and rushed into the halo. All the stagnation collapsed with a loud bang. The Stag King's body trembled a few times. A 5-colored brilliance appeared from his body, and a huge deer body was revealed. Haha! It's really here. Not bad, it's here. Although the Stag King's body was revealed, he was unusually ecstatic. He looked up to the sky and let out a long howl. After half a cup of tea's time, the Stag King stopped. He looked around and flew to a mountain ridge in the distance. With a wave of his hand, a strange feather appeared in his hand. Puff! A demonic aura fell on the feather, and the feather glowed with starlight. A strange bird the size of a fist was born from the starlight. The Stag King opened his mouth and chanted a few indescribable demonic words. The strange bird nodded and spread its wings to 10 feet in size. It then rushed into the sky and disappeared in an instant. This king will wait here. The Stag King sat down casually and looked at the hills in the distance with satisfaction. He smiled and said, "Indeed, hard work pays off." This king has searched for 1,000 years and left footprints all over the 1,000 demonic sacred realm. I really didn't expect this place to be in the hidden immortal continent. If this king didn't read all the books of the human race, how would I know? However, even in the hidden immortal continent, there are no less than 100 places with such strange phenomena. Old monster Jifeng and the others have come in vain. This king has already obtained the first merit. The Stag King waited for dozens of days. On this day, the dark clouds looked like normal, but suddenly, a burst of fire flew over from the distance. The fire landed on the clouds and forced the dark clouds to roll, as if the clouds were splitting open to welcome it. At the same time, a deep sound like the groan of heaven and earth came from the distance. Seeing the strange situation in the sky, how could the Stag King not know that a demonic beast was coming? He stood up with a bitter smile and said to himself, "Why is this guy so arrogant wherever he goes? Doesn't he know that this is the hidden immortal continent? If some literary sage or literary star finds out, won't we all be in trouble? Oh, of course, this king will be in trouble, but this guy can't be in trouble." As the scarlet flame vermilion bird, the most promising vermilion bird to become a great sage, he cultivated to the moon-picking realm in just over 1,000 years. His strength is similar to a human's 6th-level origin energy. If he is bullied by a human, damn it, won't the Vermilion Bird clan turn the hidden immortal continent upside down? The Stag King flaunted himself as a king, so he naturally didn't dare to be negligent in front of such a proud genius. He was already standing in the air. Seeing the fire approaching, he raised his hands and bowed. "Fellow immortals, you've worked hard." A very unruly voice came from the distant fire. Once the voice came, all the fire and deep groans disappeared. It was as if everything in the world was gathered in a ball of dazzling fire. That flame flashed in the sky and disappeared. When it appeared, it was already in front of the Stag King's eyes. After the flame subsided, a several zhang tall demonic beast covered in scarlet flames walked out of the fire. Just call me Zhume. What's with the greeting? It's as if you're a Confucian human. Hehe, you're right. I've been walking around the hidden immortal continent for a long time. It's inevitable that I'll be tainted by the stinky human customs. The Stag King straightened up and laughed. This so-called fellow immortal is just a flattery between the human race. It's really funny. Zhume nodded slightly. That obvious demonic body was still there, as if it disdained to transform into a human. He looked left and right, then his fiery eyes fell on the 5 hills. He asked faintly, "This is the Cold Spirit Valley you mentioned?" "Yes, it's here. It's exactly the same as the memories passed down in my clan." The Stag King nodded and answered. Zhume's eyes flashed. No emotions could be seen in his eyelids. He only said coldly, "That's strange. How come I didn't know that the demon race had such a Cold Spirit Valley? And this Cold Spirit Valley is actually in the hidden immortal continent?" Hehe, the Stag King laughed and said, "Zhume, you're from the Vermilion Bird clan. You're a higher clan in the demon race. How can my Stag clan compare to you? I'm afraid the Vermilion Bird clan disdained to pass down this Cold Spirit Valley, right?" That seems to be the case." Zhume nodded, his face full of pride, and said, "It's just that I owed you a little 100 years ago. Otherwise, I wouldn't waste my time here." The Stag King didn't get angry. He smiled and said, "Don't look down on it. As far as I know, this is where my demon race used to cultivate the sun-devouring demon physique. Even if it's abandoned now, and no longer beneficial to my cultivation, perhaps the ancient rewards are still inside. If I can get my hands on some ancient pure bloodline, it'll be greatly beneficial to my cultivation." "I hope it's as you say." Zhume stretched lazily and opened her mouth. A pillar of flame soared into the sky, dispersing the clouds in the surrounding 1,000 feet. "I can't believe that there's a bloodline purer than my Vermilion Bird clan here. This is an ancient bloodline," the Stag King muttered in a low voice. But seeing that Zhume didn't seem to care, he didn't say anything. "When will that rat come?" Zhume suddenly asked. "I don't want to wait any longer." "He should be here soon." The Stag King looked in another direction and smiled apologetically. "Although old Demon Jifeng is skilled in wind travel, he's still a far cry from you. Looks like we'll have to wait a few more days." A light conjuring realm rat dares to call himself an old demon. What a joke. Zhume really didn't care about old Demon Jifeng. "I really can't imagine why you're looking for him." Hehe, although his cultivation is low, he still walks step by step from the hair-shedding realm to where he is now. With his age, it's reasonable for him to call himself an old demon. The Stag King explained, "I invited him here because he knows wind travel. As far as I know, there's a requirement to enter the Cold Spirit Valley. My dear clan is skilled in plants and vegetation, but not wind travel. Otherwise, we wouldn't have kept this a secret." Zhume didn't comment. She looked coldly at the hills in the distance. Suddenly, a very cold primary will swept over from afar, like a person's gaze unscrupulously prying into another's privacy. "Ooh!" Zhume shouted angrily. The feather on her forehead suddenly exploded, and a similarly strong primary will rushed out. Puff puff puff, a series of explosive sounds rang out. It was as though a falling tide had met a rising tide. The sky was filled with shockwaves. These shockwaves were either high or low. The high shockwaves shot straight up into the sky. Under the impact of these powerful shockwaves, the red clouds that were gradually calming down once again turned into many whirlpools. Within the whirlpools, hurricanes were stirred up. It was a phenomenon of wind and clouds surging. Swoosh! Zhume spread her wings, and between her scarlet feathers, orange flames shot up into the sky. It was as if Zhume had suffered a small loss and was preparing to use her divine ability. Ao! At the same time, a loud dragon roar sounded from where the primary will came from. The dragon roar seemed to contain anger. Who dares to challenge Little King?" An obscure and loud voice came from afar. A ray of blue light flew over, and a dragon that was dozens of feet long streaked across the sky. The dragon's aura was like an arrow, and the dragon's tail was like a scissor. It pounced towards Zhume and King Stag. "Of course it's me." Zhume sneered. She spread her wings, turned into a ball of flame, and rushed out. Misunderstanding, misunderstanding, King Stag hurriedly shouted. At the same time, old monster Zhifeng's figure also appeared behind the aqua blue dragon. He shouted in unison. It's a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. What misunderstanding? Those who dare to attack Little King, how can it be a misunderstanding? The blue dragon opened its mouth, and the heaven-earth yuan qi within 100 feet became chaotic. It fell towards the dragon that was dozens of feet long, and a spike-like whirlpool instantly appeared in front of the blue dragon's head. Chapter 3763. Little Prince, please wait. At this moment, a majestic voice sounded in the sky. Two figures flew over from behind old demon Zhifeng. When they got closer, Stag King could see clearly that one was Ao Shuai, the inspector of the East Sea, and the other was dressed like a dragon general. He was taller than Ao Shuai, but Stag King didn't recognize his face. That voice came from this dragon general. The blue dragon seemed to be a little afraid of this dragon general. When it heard the voice, it coldly snorted and the light around its body faded away, turning into a humanoid figure. It stood there and looked provocatively at Zhu Mei, who hadn't transformed yet. Hee, Stag King Zhu Mei. Ao Shuai said as he flew. I'm late. Sorry. Well said. Stag King didn't dare to let Zhu Mei speak. He quickly bowed and said, I'm already very happy that the inspector came in time and brought helpers. I'm a king? Which Stag King are you? What right do you have to call yourself a king? Before Ao Shuai could say anything, the human figure of the blue dragon asked coldly. Stag King had heard the dragon general beside Ao Shuai call him Little Prince. He immediately smiled and said, Little Prince, of course I don't dare to call myself king in front of the dragon race. But in my stag race, I'm considered a lord with over 100,000 miles of territory. Other demons call me king, so I can't disagree. But that Little Prince wanted to say something, but the dragon general interrupted him. He stepped forward and cupped his hands. Mulu King, I'm Ao Zhan, the dragon guard of the East Sea Dragon Palace. This is my fourth prince's wife's brother, Ao Qian. This time, I accompanied the Little Prince out to train. I heard that Ao Shuai wanted to explore the Cold Spirit Valley, so I brought the Little Prince here. I hope you can forgive me for not informing you beforehand. Ha, I thought it was some Little Prince. So it's a relative of the East Sea Dragon Palace. How pitiful. Zhu Mei laughed when she heard that. How dare you? Ao Qian was furious. The water around him flashed as if he was about to attack again. Oh, I wonder, where did you come from? How dare you mock my East Sea Dragon Palace? Ao Zhan's face turned cold as he looked at Zhu Mei indifferently. Even if he's a relative of the East Sea Dragon Palace, ordinary demons can't look up to him. Oh, this is Zhu Mei of the Vermilion Bird Tribe's Scarlet Flame Branch. Stag King hurriedly smiled. He's a genius of our Thousand Beasts sacred realm. He's only cultivated for 1,000 years, but he's already reached the moon-plucking realm. He's the demon with the highest chance of becoming a great sage in the Vermilion Bird clan. It's just advancing to the 5th level of origin energy in 1,000 years. What's the big deal? Such demons are everywhere in my dragon clan. Ao Qian snorted coldly, seemingly very unwilling to admit defeat. Zhu Mei smiled and flapped her fiery wings. The dancing flames were just like the provocation in her eyes. Other dragons are other dragons, not you. If you're not convinced, you can come and compare. Hee, why wouldn't I dare? Ao Qian was eager to try, and the water blue color around him gradually thickened. So it's Zhu Mei. Flying Feather and Icon Great Sage came to the East Sea Dragon Palace many years ago. My Dragon King once hosted a banquet to welcome her. When I was waiting outside the main hall, I heard the Great Sage praising you. Ao Zhan smiled. Oh, Zhu Mei's withered yellow eyes turned quickly, and there was shock in her eyes. The Flying Feather and Icon Great Sage was no ordinary demon. She was one of the 6 great sages of the Thousand Beasts sacred realm, and she was ranked 3rd among the 6 great sages. She was 2 ranks higher than the Scarlet Flame Vermilion Bird of the Vermilion Bird clan. How could she not be surprised? Flying Feather Great Sage Zhu Mei hurriedly lowered her voice and said respectfully, Why did you mention me? Ao Zhan didn't hide anything and said word by word. The saint only evaluated these 7 words and said that if you can achieve the first 2 words, you will be able to devour the sun within 2,000 years. If you can achieve the 4th word, you will be able to conquer the heavens within 5,000 years. If you can achieve the 7th word, you will be able to devour the sky and become a saint within 10,000 years. When Aozhan said this, all the demons were shocked. The cultivation of demons was not as good as that of humans. Not only were their lifespans longer than humans, but they also had a harder time cultivating. For humans, whether it was Taoism, Confucianism, or Buddhism, it would take them 50 to 60,000 years to cultivate from level 1 to level 9. However, for demons, it would take them more than 100,000 years to cultivate from hair shedding, wisdom opening, light gathering, star picking, moon swallowing, sky swallowing, and finally sky swallowing to become a great sage. In particular, the beginning of human cultivation was the most difficult. Towards the end, although it became more and more difficult, there would always be a trace of opportunity that prevented people from feeling despair. As for Yao cultivation, the beginning was very simple. This was especially true for Zhu Mei, who had an ancient bloodline. She could reach the enlightening and light-conjuring realms right after she started cultivating. However, once she reached the moon-plucking realm, the sun-devouring realm and the sky-conjuring realm were like 2 heavenly moats. Without 10,000 years of cultivation and accumulation, it was impossible to break through. Sky swallowing required even more opportunity to become a great sage. It was not something that could be achieved through cultivation. With Zhu Mei's enviable talent, it was possible for her to reach the moon-picking realm within 1,000 years. However, just as Ao Qian had said, there were many dragons with such talent. However, sun swallowing within 2,000 years and sky swallowing within 5,000 years was still under the condition of achieving mind closing. There was no need for opportunity at all. This was impossible in the eyes of other demons. As for the last 3 words, heaven's secret, it shocked all the demons so much that their eyeballs almost fell out. Other demons needed 100,000 years of accumulation to become a great sage, and this was still dependent on opportunity. Under the same conditions, Zhu Mei could actually become a great sage within 20,000 years. This was such an evaluation. Ao. General Ao. Stag King stuttered. Great Sage Feather became a great sage within 80,000 years, right? Yes. Aozhan smiled. At that time, my Dragon King also said the same thing. He did not believe it either, but the great sage just smiled and did not explain. Why didn't I know about it? Zhu Mei asked in a low voice in ecstasy. If not for the Dragon Clan, who would know about the matters of the Dragon Palace? Aozhan replied proudly. However, the Dragon King did not issue an edict regarding your matter. I believe there is no need to hide it. Thank you, General Ao. Zhu Mei bowed respectfully. In his heart, he understood that this was the Dragon Palace's goodwill. These words were enough to save him thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years of trouble. Ah, congratulations, fellow immortal Zhu. Old demon Jifeng sighed and cupped his hands. When I heard this, I felt jealous and envious. I have cultivated bitterly for 2,000 years, and am only in the light-conjuring realm. I have just touched the threshold of the planet star. As for moon-plucking and sun-swallowing, I do not even dare to think about it. Perhaps one day when I am still struggling in the planet star, fellow immortal Zhu will have already become a great sage. Fellow immortal Jifeng, you are overthinking. Everyone has their own destinies. I merely borrowed the power of my bloodline. I can't compare to fellow immortal's steady cultivation, taking one step at a time. Zhu Mei was in a good mood. She didn't hesitate to talk about fellow immortal and her. That's right. Ao Shui glanced at Ao Qian, who had a strange expression and hurriedly blocked him. He said to old demon Jifeng, look at your cultivation, fellow immortal Jifeng. Last time, you were in the light-conjuring realm, and only in the upper middle of the 4th stage of essence energy. After not seeing you for a few years, aren't you also on the verge of the planet star? When you come out of the cold spirit valley, even if you did not receive any rewards, you should be able to reach the middle of the 5th stage of essence energy if you assimilate the bloodline you obtained, right? What does this little bit of improvement count for? How can it be compared to all of you? Old Demon Jifeng's face showed a trace of excitement as he hurriedly waved his hand. Then the demons chatted for a while, and the tense atmosphere gradually dissipated. Stag King looked at the demons, cleared his throat, and raised his hand. Everyone, please look. The 5 hills in front of you are the entrance to the Cold Spirit Valley. After entering, it will be the place where my ancient demon race tempered their bodies. According to the inheritance I obtained, there is an ancient star-gathering demon formation inside. The star energy is extremely abundant, and there is no impurity of the world's origin energy or noble chi. Using it to temper one's body is 10 times stronger than outside. Moreover, this training is divided into several stages. Every stage will have a corresponding reward, whether it is an inheritance fragment or a pure bloodline, which can allow our cultivation to reach a higher level. How come this king does not know of such a mysterious place? Ao Qian asked coldly. Ahem. Ao Zhang coughed and smiled. Young king, whether it is the 1,000 demons sacred realm, the hidden immortal continent, or the Pure Land, there are many ancient demon race ruins. My dragon race, perhaps it is a little different from the vermilion bird race or the deer race. These inheritances may be a little lacking, so it is normal that young king does not know. Looking at the unconvinced Ao Qian, the Stag King smiled bitterly in his heart. The unruly Zhu Mei was already hard enough. Now with Ao Qian, whose temper was on par with Zhu Mei's, he didn't know if this trip would go smoothly. However, since he was already here, he had to follow the plan. After all, these 2 demons, he could not afford to offend them. Ao Qian snorted and looked up at the sky. The red clouds there had started to snow again. I have already mentioned this place to old demon Jifeng and Ao Shuai. Stag King said again. Us 3 demons and Zhu Mei have all searched for the ruins. However, the specific way to enter. Just as Stag King was about to say the way to enter, Ao Qian suddenly roared. His body turned into a blue light and rushed out. In a few breaths, he flew hundreds of feet. Ao Qian's target was the surging river in the distance. Before his body landed, a cluster of blue crystal threads shot out from the demon chi and hit the river thousands of feet away. Boom! The river water split apart and emitted a loud roar. Gravel that was 1,000 feet in size flew up from the river bank. 2 water beasts that were dozens of feet long and 10 feet long were blown away by the crystal thread. When the corpses of the water beasts landed on the shore, they were riddled with holes and specks of blood. How could they still have any aura? At the same time, thank you to Flowing Water E and other fellow Taoists for their support. Today, I wish all of you good luck and great success in the Year of the Goat. Chapter 3764. When Stag King and the others saw this, their expressions changed slightly. Zhu Mei sneered and said, Little Prince, you've killed these 2 upstream beasts. Who knows who ordered them to come here? These 2 things were found by me. I can do whatever I want with them. Ao Qian didn't care about Zhu Mei at all. Stag King, did these upstream beasts follow you? Zhu Mei glanced at Ao Qian and turned to ask Stag King. Stag King shook his head and said hesitantly, I don't think so. I already checked the surroundings when I came. Check again. Ao Zhan flew into the air without saying anything. His body flashed with golden light as he released his Yuan will. Okay, Ao Shuai also agreed. No matter who they came with, we'll go check it out first. According to Stag King, no one can enter without his inheritance and demon weapon. Let's take advantage of the break and go in. Okay. Zhu Mei also spread her wings and flew around the hills. All the demons went in different directions and checked for more than 1,000 miles. They didn't find anything, so they returned. Stag King didn't dare to delay. He quickly took out a piece of beast skin and handed it to old demon Jifeng. Immortal friend Jifeng, take a look. This contains some secrets of my Stag clan's inheritance. It should be related to entering Cold Spirit Valley. Old demon Jifeng's face flushed red. Although he was extremely arrogant in front of Xiaohua, when facing Ao Shuai, he was no longer imposing. Now that he met Ao Qian and Zhu Mei again, he was even more cautious. He really couldn't compare to these heaven's favored ones in any aspect. Now that Stag King took out a piece of beast skin and let him take a look, his vanity swelled. This old demon Jifeng was slightly reserved and said humbly, I didn't know immortal friend Zhu and immortal friend Ao were coming, so I tried to be brave. Now that the two of you are here, I don't dare to embarrass myself. Please take a look first. Stag King frowned. Old demon Jifeng was right. After all, Zhu Mei, Ao Qian, and Ao Zhan were the strongest. Some things should be decided by them. But the problem was to enter the Cold Spirit Valley, one needed the art of wind travel. King Mulu had already discussed this with old demon Jifeng. Now that he proposed to let the two demons have a look, rather than saying that he was being modest, it was better to say that he was showing off. Sure enough, without waiting for the Stag King to speak, Zhu Mei said coldly, "Little mouse, what do you mean? If you don't want to enter, then scram." Ao Qian laughed maniacally at Zhu Mei's words. Haha, if this king sees it, you'll have to tuck your tail between your legs and follow behind this king. Fortunately, the two demons didn't directly force him to hand over the beast's skin. That old demon Jifeng smiled apologetically and said, Yes, I made a mistake. I'll check it now." Looking at old monster Jifeng's rat-like appearance, the Stag King was both angry and amused. He thought to himself, a rat is a rat. Even if it has cultivated for 10,000 years, it is still a rat. They had never heard of a rat becoming a saint in the Thousand Demons sacred realm. This is not only related to the bloodline but also to the temperament. Although old demon Jifeng looked wretched, his strength was indeed very strong. He only released his primordial thought for a moment, and his small rat-like eyes were filled with doubt. Holding the beast's skin, he asked curiously, "King Mulu, is it that simple? What we discussed before didn't seem to be just that." "Fellow immortal, what you want to do is that simple." The Stag King smiled and said, "When I was discussing with fellow immortal, this king didn't know that there would be other immortal friends coming." Old demon Jifeng looked slightly disappointed and handed the beast's skin to the Stag King. Zhu Mei, young prince, General Ao, inspector, entering the Cold Spirit Valley requires the help of 4 fellow immortal friends. This is the beast skin that this king has just prepared. With that, the Stag King took out 4 more beast skins and handed them to the 4 demons. After the 4 demons took them, he said, "This king originally thought that it would be difficult for the inspector, old demon Jifeng, and the 3 of us to open the barrier of the Cold Spirit Valley, so I invited Zhu Mei. Since young prince and General Ao are here, this king has full confidence that we can go in." Okay, Ao Shui took the beast skin and looked at Ao Zhan and Ao Qian. He nodded and looked at it. In just a moment, the 4 demons finished looking at it. Zhu Mei said coldly, "This barrier of the Cold Spirit Valley requires our essence blood. I need to think about whether we should go in or not." The Stag King smiled bitterly. He knew very well that humans and demons both needed essence blood to cultivate, but demons were different from humans. In order to break the barrier and refine magic treasures, Taoist cultivators could spit out large amounts of essence blood. The essence blood used for refining could be replenished in a short period of time. However, the Yao clan was different. The inheritance of the Yao clan lay in their bloodline. Not to mention large amounts of blood essence. They did not even dare to waste a single strand of blood essence. This was because even a strand of blood essence would require many years of cultivation to make up for. This was even more so for high-level demons like Zhu Mei. If there weren't enough benefits, Zhu Mei wouldn't waste her essence blood for nothing. "Zhu Mei, I don't know what's inside. It's up to you." The Stag King said calmly, "If you don't go, old demon Jifeng's essence blood should be useful." "Damn it. Isn't it just a drop of essence blood? Can't you just use the blood glory ginseng? Don't tell me your Vermilion Bird clan doesn't have such a treasure." Ao Qian was unhappy and shouted. Zhu Mei's eyes flashed with anger. She glanced at the 3 generals of the Dragon Palace and said, "There are many treasures in the Dragon Palace, but there are also many prodigals." Damn it! Blue water rushed out from Ao Qian's dragon horn. He was about to get angry. "Young prince, please wait." Ao Zhan quickly stopped him and asked, "Zhu Mei, do you have other ideas?" Zhu Mei didn't neglect Ao Zhan. She nodded and said, "That's right. If I have to waste my essence blood to enter Cold Spirit Valley, I might as well return to the Thousand Demons sacred realm and explore Mount Cast Demon." "Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? You think you can enter Mount Cast Demon?" Ao Qian immediately shouted. if you want to bargain, why don't you find a good reason? Shut up. Ao Qian turned around and said, if you don't want to go in, I'll accompany you back to the East Sea Dragon Palace. Don't. Ao Qian hurriedly smiled and said, I haven't had enough fun yet. Why would I return to the lifeless bottom of the sea? Well, since you don't want to go back now, then please listen to my arrangements. Whatever, Ao Qian put away the blue water and took a few steps back. He raised his claws and looked into the distance. Ao Zhan looked at Zhu Mei and said, actually, I have the same idea as you. It doesn't matter whether we go in or not. Moreover, this general had no intention of obtaining any benefits from it. It was only because of the little prince's experience that I followed along. I can't guarantee that I can make up for the essence blood you used. But when I think about how Cold Spirit Valley was where the ancient demons went to experience it, to be honest, I'm also curious. Although my dragon race has left the Thousand Demons' sacred realm, in ancient times, my dragon race was also part of the demon race. I'd like to see what kind of opportunities there are. Focus, concentrate. I understand. Although Ao Zhan didn't say those words, Zhu Mei realized something when she saw Ao Zhan's gaze. She nodded and said, maybe I can learn something from the experience? I don't know. Ao Zhan shook his head. How about this? Stag King struck while the iron was hot and said with a smile, let's not talk about what we get in Cold Spirit Valley based on our own opportunities. I'll give you half of what we get together. How about that? If that's the case, Zhu Mei glanced at the three demons of the Dragon Palace and finally nodded. All right. Seeing Zhu Mei agree, the Stag King was overjoyed. However, he still carefully glanced at Ao Zhan and Ao Qian. After all, the two demons were not included in the previous discussion. Now that he added more to Zhu Mei, who knew what the two demons would think. Fortunately, it seemed that Ao Zhan really brought Ao Qian here for experience, and didn't care about what they got together. Thus Stag King hurriedly said, if that's the case, let's do it now. Okay. When the demons heard that, they all put away their beast skins and urged their demon clouds to fly to the 5 hills. When the 5 demons stood still on the 5 hills, old demon Jifeng urged his wind escape and soared into the sky for more than 10,000 feet. Let's do it. Seeing that they stood still according to the previous discussion, Stag King carefully checked his memory again. After confirming that there were no mistakes, he spoke. Although Zhu Mei and Ao Qian were arrogant and unruly, they did not dare to be negligent in the face of the ancient barrier. Hearing the Stag King's words, they turned around and faced the 5 faintly discernible beast heads on the hill. Pooh! The 5 demons opened their mouths at the same time and spat out a mouthful of essence blood. Once the essence blood came out, there was no need to use any demon technique. 5 thin rays of starlight and moonlight fell from the sky into the essence blood. The entire essence blood swelled rapidly as if it was boiling. Then 5 hurricanes rolled up a whirlpool above the essence blood and countless chi of heaven and earth swarmed in. The power of the stars and moonlight couldn't be seen with the naked eye, but the hurricanes could see the difference in the essence blood of the 5 demons. Stag King's essence blood was the color of dead wood. In the thumb-sized drop of blood, a blurry antler could be faintly seen. The hurricane above the drop of blood was the size of a fist. Although Ao Shui, Ao Qian, and Ao Zhan were all dragons, their essence blood was different. Ao Shui's essence blood was earthy yellow, and also had a blurry dragon head. The hurricane above it was also the size of a fist. Ao Qian's essence blood was water blue, and the dragon head inside was extremely clear. Even the dragon horn could be seen clearly. Of course, the hurricane above it was also close to a foot long. Ao Zhan's essence blood was more strange. It was silver white, and not only did it have a dragon head, but it also had a dragon body. However, when Ao Zhan spat out the essence blood, he blocked it with his body. He even slightly raised his hand and shrunk the 3-foot hurricane to half a foot long. Zhu Mei's essence blood was very arrogant. It was actually a ball of scarlet flame. Moreover, this flame was in the shape of a vermilion bird. The hurricane that rushed into the essence blood was also more than 3 feet long. Oh. Zhu Mei didn't care about her own essence blood. She was closest to Ao Zhan and inadvertently glanced at the hurricane that had just shrunk. She was shocked. Why is Ao Zhan's blood so pure? Could it be that he Chapter 3765. However, seeing that Ao Zhan, Ao Qian, and Ao Shui had their backs facing each other, Zhu Mei immediately retracted her gaze. The secret of the Dragon Palace. Even someone as strong as Zhu Mei didn't want to get involved. Puff puff puff. Zhu Mei retracted her gaze and spat out several mouthfuls of demonic energy. Then, she flapped her wings and flames fell into it. The entire essence blood slowly rotated, and the shape of the vermilion bird gradually turned into a strange talisman. It was very similar to the talisman on Xiaohua's white bones. Since Zhu Mei made her move, the other 4 demons naturally began to move as well. The talismans of the 3 dragons were very similar, but the Stag King's was different. Move. Seeing that the talisman was already clearly visible, the Stag King shouted. Zhu Mei and the others pushed their arms at the same time, and 5 talismans made of essence blood rushed towards the beast heads of the 5 hills. Shua, the essence blood fell into the stone walls of the hills, but there was no movement. In just a moment, boom, the 5 hills shook at the same time, as if the mountains were collapsing and the earth was cracking. The earth was also shaking, and the 5 hills were actually pulled out from the ground. Patches of moss were cut off from the hills, and huge rocks rolled down from the top of the hills. Layers of bloody light spread over the hills, and the originally blurry beast heads on the hills became abnormally clear. Moreover, under the uprooted hills, the bodies of the strange beasts were revealed. Just as the bodies of the 5 strange beasts were revealed, Ao 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 5 beastly roars resounded from the 5 stone walls that had already formed the mountain peaks. Immediately, the phantoms of the 5 strange beasts came out of the walls, and the red clouds that filled the sky instantly rolled away. 5 pillars of light that were invisible to the naked eye penetrated through the gaps of the 5 clouds, directly covering the phantoms. 5 abnormally fierce and desolate auras rushed out of the phantoms, not only making the 5 demons unstable, but also spreading out in all directions like a tide. Amazing! Zhu Mei's body flashed with flames, and her eyelidless eyes were filled with ecstasy. She stared at the phantoms without blinking. As an expert of the demon clan, it was very easy for her to capture the indescribable aura of an expert from the phantoms. Zhu Mei was like this, and in the sky, old demon Ji Feng's entire body was trembling. This kind of trembling was both afraid and excited. The aura of the phantoms was the power that he had dreamed of for thousands of years. Roar. After a few breaths, the 5 phantoms simultaneously roared towards the sky, and each rushed towards the center. Boom, the 5 phantoms collided together. There was no soaring chi, but tens of thousands of starlight fragments. These fragments were like withered leaves in front of the demons'. Immediately, totems and shadows and totems were produced, flashing and flickering from the fragments. Zhu Mei and the others, the 9 dragons' body, were dazzling. The 9 dazzled their eyes. And the 9 dragons its 9 claws dazzled thus. And there was the head. The were the 9 claws of thus, and the thus to them it. Thus is. Primeval dragon. Ao Qian, Ao Zhan and Ao Shui were dumbfounded. Primeval dragon, the ancestor of the dragon clan. They didn't know how many legends they had heard about the origin of the dragon clan, but they had never seen the primeval dragon's appearance in the dragon palace. They hadn't even seen the primeval dragon's totem in their memories. What did this mean? No one knew better than them what kind of experience they were about to face. Heavenly phoenix? The primeval dragon's totem flashed and disappeared. Then a phoenix with a sharp beak, slender eyes and 7 colored feathers appeared in the totem. This phoenix's eyes were filled with incomparable arrogance. Zhu Mei's body trembled. She was even more surprised than the 3 dragons. Then the totems of the primeval demon clan's ancestors appeared one after another. Among them, there were some that the demons knew. In the end, each of the totems shocked the demons because these totems were beyond their knowledge. The 6 demons knew in their hearts that these ancient almighty and peerless experts might have been annihilated in the torrent of time. Other than the totems left behind from the ancient times, even some legends had disappeared. Suddenly, a totem similar to the Stag King appeared in the nebula. Zhu Mei couldn't help but cry out, "Stag King, is this?" "Yes, this is the totem in this king's inheritance." The Stag King was shocked and immediately realized. Seeing that the Stag King's totem was about to disappear, the Stag King shouted. He didn't dare to slow down. He waved his hand and took out something that looked like an antler from the Heaven and Earth bracelet on his arm. He hurriedly threw it, and the antler rushed into the Stag King's horn on the totem. Although the antler didn't completely match the one on the totem, and there was still an inch-long gap on the totem, the entire totem stopped. Then, the totem rapidly transformed into the shape of a huge cauldron and fell towards the river below. Boom! Water light rose from the sky, and the earth shook violently again. Countless rocks were torn apart, and a black hole that was dozens of feet in size appeared in the middle of the water pillar. A huge stream of air rushed into the sky and blew towards old demon Jifeng, who was calmly standing thousands of feet in the sky. GG. At this moment, old demon Jifeng was filled with pride. He opened his mouth and cried out a few times. He turned into a breeze and entered the stream of air, going against the current. Everyone, please don't rush. And the Stag King saw that old demon Jifeng had entered the stream of air and was flying towards the black hole. He hurriedly shouted, "This is the enchantment of the Cold Spirit Valley. If you don't have the wind travel technique, you can't enter. Everyone, please don't try." If it was a normal situation, why would Zhu Mei and Ao Qian care? However, after seeing the primordial dragon and heavenly phoenix, no matter how arrogant they were, they didn't dare to touch this restriction that they didn't know how powerful it was. Old demon Jifeng's progress was very smooth. In a short moment, he had already reached the side of the black hole. As old demon Jifeng stood in front of the black hole, a whimper was heard. The totem and light disappeared, turning into tens of thousands of stars and falling towards the 5 mountains. At the same time, the 5 mountains slowly fell towards the ground. Go! The Stag King shouted. His figure flew out first and fell into the black hole. In fact, there was no need for the Stag King's reminder. The other 4 demons had already retracted their figures and followed the Stag King into the black hole. Boom! When the 6 demons rushed into the black hole fell along with the mountains and slowly closed. The water that rushed into the sky suddenly fell, and the entire river covered the black hole. However, when everything calmed down, a huge whirlpool appeared on the surging river. It didn't disappear for a long time. Strangely, not long after, Ao Shuai's figure actually peeked out of the whirlpool. He looked left and right, then shrank back. When he reappeared, it was Ao Shuai and the Stag King again. Looking at the whirlpool below him, the Stag King smiled bitterly. "Inspector, this entrance isn't completely closed. I'm afraid it's because this king's token is missing. However, the entrance is still gradually shrinking. I think it won't be long before it completely closes." "Alright." Ao Shuai's Yuan will swept and nodded. "Since it's a place for us demons to train, others might not know. Let's hurry down." Then the 2 demons disappeared again. Half a day later, the whirlpool shrank by half again. Suddenly, Boom! Zhu Mei and Ao Zhan rushed out of the whirlpool. As soon as the 2 demons appeared, they immediately swept out with their Yuan wills. In the time it took to eat a meal, the 2 demons retracted their Yuan wills and looked at each other. Knowing that there were no humans or demons here, they didn't say anything and rushed into the whirlpool and disappeared. Below the whirlpool was the black hole that was still a few feet wide. The 2 demons rushed into the black hole, their bodies slightly distorted and instantly elongated like long branches. This figure swam in a long colorful passage. When it condensed again, Zhu Mei and Ao Zhan's eyes lit up. The 2 demons rushed out of a fist-sized crack. At this time, the crack was on the ground, and the river water that emitted a strange smell was spurting out from this crack. "How is it? Did the 2 of you find any clues?" the Stag King hurriedly asked when he saw the 2 demons appear. "No." Ao Zhan looked at the huge trees and rocks around him and answered, "It's the same as when we came in. No demons came." So the Stag King nodded. "Only the 2 water beasts followed us and no other demons?" "Of course." Zhu Mei looked at the floating antlers in the sky and said, "You can take this token. See if you can close the entrance." "Wait a moment." The Stag King was uncertain. "If I take the token, we might be teleported away again. Won't the entrance be open for other demons to enter?" "Enter my ass." Ao Qian was already impatient. Looking at the vast wilderness and the 9 suns and stars in the sky, he shouted, "Hurry up and take the token. I'm still waiting for my training." Young Prince Aozhan reminded him in a low voice. Rumble suddenly, the sound of thunder could be heard from afar, and it was getting closer and closer. Thunder Flood Dragon. Damn it, it's a Thunder Flood Dragon. Zhu Mei scanned with her essence will and saw a 200 feet long flood dragon with lightning flashing around its body. It was flying towards them like lightning. She couldn't help but moan. This Thunder Flood Dragon has the power to swallow the sun. Why isn't there any essence will? The demons were shocked and released their essence wills. Old demon Jifeng couldn't help but exclaim. Hurry up and leave. Our essence wills have already disturbed the Thunder Flood Dragon. Aozhan hurriedly shouted. This Thunder Flood Dragon is an opponent for us to train with. The reason why it doesn't have any essence wills might be because it can't condense essence wills in this barrier. Go. Hurry up and leave. At this point, the Stag King didn't care if other demons entered. He reached out and immediately took the token in his hand. When his hoof-like hand touched the antler token, a cryptic message was transmitted from the antler. Ah! The Stag King was immediately stunned. An inconceivable ecstasy appeared on his face. Chapter 3766. What's wrong? Zhu Mei hurriedly asked when she saw that the demons were not teleported away, and the Deer King was so ecstatic. The Deer King took a deep breath and shouted, I'll let you know that this is indeed the Cold Spirit Valley used by the ancient demon clan for training. These demons know, we can only call them demon beasts. They grew up in the Cold Spirit Valley and don't know how to cultivate. They don't have primordial thoughts. What? No primordial thoughts? The demons were overjoyed, but then old demon Jifeng shouted indignantly, even if they don't have primordial thoughts, they don't have intelligence. No, demon beasts that aren't even in the hair removal realm have the strength of the moon-picking realm? Let's not talk about it. Let's go. Zhu Mei flapped her wings and flew up shouting, let's escape from the Thunder Flood Dragon first. That guy is already flying over. Let's go. Aozhan raised his hand and a golden spear appeared in his hand. He hurriedly said, we'll discuss how to face the enemy as we go. The 6 demons no longer dared to pay attention to the water flow at the entrance and hurriedly flew away on their demon clouds. In just a moment, the Thunder Flood Dragon flashed and fell. The Thunder Flood Dragon did not fall, but its violent aura scattered the water flow. The Thunder Flood Dragon stuck out its snake head and sniffed the water flow. Lightning flowed around its body as if it was about to rush into the entrance. Boom! A burst of star power exploded at the entrance, flipping the 200 feet long Thunder Flood Dragon over. Streaks of blood even appeared on the Thunder Flood Dragon's scales. Roar! The Thunder Flood Dragon let out a sorrowful cry and flew in the direction that the Deer King and the others flew in. After half a day, the fist-sized entrance became smaller and smaller. The water flow that rushed out became smaller and smaller. However, it was also much higher. At this moment, a white light flashed in the water. 2 ferocious-looking dragon figures appeared in the water. Swoosh! At this moment, a white light flashed in the water and 2 more ferocious dragon figures appeared in the water. However, as soon as these 2 dragons appeared, they immediately flew to the sides and did not stop at all. When the 2 dragons landed in the air, they looked at each other and then at the situation around them. They were really confused. One of them said, Jiangpeng, is this the Cold Spirit Valley? I don't know. The dragon named Jiangpeng shook his head slightly. There is no record of the Cold Spirit Valley in our clan. I only learned about it from the messages of the 2 water beasts. However, now is not the time to pursue the matter. Let's avoid it first and familiarize ourselves with it before acting according to the plan. It seems that what we discussed earlier was not like this. The dragon shook his head slightly. We didn't have to come in Jiangche. When we came out, the elder had already said that you must listen to me. We must act according to the situation. Previously, the dragon bones didn't even stir up trouble between the Dragon Palace and Jiaxing Lu. Now we have to make up for our mistakes. Jiangpeng waved his claws. His body was almost crawling on the ground as he swam far away. The dragon named Jiang Che felt very helpless. He could only lie down and swim along. Although the 2 dragons were supported by floating clouds, Jiang Che still glared fiercely at the gradually falling water and the gradually shrinking entrance. The entrance to the Cold Spirit Valley had already been sealed. No human or demon would be able to enter anymore. Moreover, as the two dragons swam, a strange color emerged from their scales. This color gradually diffused around the two dragons. The two dragons had already fused with their surroundings. It was hard to see any dragon shape. It was as if the two dragons had mysteriously disappeared. Putting aside the fact that the demons had flown into the Cold Spirit Valley to train, just as Xiaohua and Fujiwen were about to move, Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat again. He whispered, "Don't rush." Ah! Fujiwen was stunned. He clearly remembered that 3 years ago, when Xiaohua had just agreed under his urging, Xiaohua mysteriously went into seclusion. Fujiwen also mysteriously practiced. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. And now, it was the same again. Fujiwen looked at Xiaohua strangely. He did not know why. "Come here quickly." Xiaohua hurried to the cloud bed. As he walked, he said, "Disciple, think carefully. Before we entered the Misty Mountain Maze, did you think that the 4 layers of formations were already very powerful? Did you not think that there were 2 layers of maze in this formation?" "Yes, master." Fujiwen nodded blankly. "Did you think that after the first layer of maze, the outer mansion would be Senior Songlangzi's cave residence? Did you not think that there would be a second layer of maze?" "Yes, master." "Then when you entered the outer mansion for the second time, did you think that you had gone the wrong way, and would not step into the same cave entrance?" "Yes, master." "Then when you entered the inner mansion, did you think that there was nothing in the cave residence? Were you very disappointed?" "Yes, master." "When you got the ink cloud pupil and the elixir from the 2 caves, did you want to leave? Did you not think that there was a jade rui on the cloud bed?" "Yes, master." "And now, did you have some enlightenment and feel that there was nothing in the cave residence and want to leave?" "Yes, master." "That's right. So the biggest secret hidden in Senior Songlangzi's cave residence was not what I got before. The biggest secret is on the cloud bed." "Ah, master, why? I don't understand." Xiaohua smiled strangely and pointed to the cloud bed, saying, "It's very simple. Because I can't take the cloud bed away." "No way. What kind of reason is this?" Fujiwen cried, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. "Of course, this is the reason." Xiaohua's eyes flashed with excitement. He pointed to the empty cave residence and said, "The jade shelves, jade tables, jade chairs and so on in the cave residence can be moved. Why can't the cloud bed be moved? Moreover, according to what I just said, every time Senior Songlangzi tried to hide something, it would only make it more conspicuous. Every discovery would be a pleasant surprise. This surprise was unexpected and joyful, which was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. When ordinary people came to Senior Songlangzi's cave residence, their ultimate goal was to get Senior Songlangzi's orthodoxy and the way of formation. But now, I boldly speculate that the most precious thing in this cave residence is definitely not Senior Songlangzi's enlightenment of Taoism, but something else." Master Fujiwen felt wronged and said, "Haven't I found Senior Songlangzi's orthodoxy? Didn't you gain some other enlightenment on the cloud bed? Isn't that the most precious thing? What's more precious?" "Hehe, my disciple, to tell you the truth, the orthodoxy you got was left by Songlangzi and ink cloud pupil. What I got is his real enlightenment, the crystallization of Taoism. But don't worry, when your cultivation is high enough, I will teach you." Xiaohua walked to the cloud bed with a smile. He looked at the huge cloud bed and said, "I'm really looking forward to it. You and I have gained a lot from the trip to Misty Mountain, but we still haven't found the most precious thing in the cave residence." "What is the most precious thing?" "It's something that Senior Songlangzi couldn't take away." "Master, you're so careful." Fujiwen was completely defeated by the money grubber Xiaohua. He followed behind Xiaohua and walked to the front of the cloud bed. He looked up and down, looked left and right, and even walked to the inside of the cloud bed to take a look. He was still confused. It was just a cloud bed. Who would think that there was some mystery inside? Xiaohua laughed and said, "Senior Songlangzi blocked his divine thought and Buddhist awareness in this cave residence because he didn't want others to find the secret of the cloud bed. Unfortunately, man proposes, God disposes. He didn't expect that I would come here thousands of years later." "Yes, master." You clean Senior Songlangzi's cave residence so well. This is Senior Songlangzi's way of thanking you. Fu Jiwen replied with a bitter smile. But he was really impressed by Xiaohua's ability. Xiaohua released his soul awareness and carefully examined it. He snorted and said, "If you want by and to stay in the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal, then don't talk nonsense." Disciple was wrong. Fu Jiwen laughed. But his heart was moved. He hurriedly took off the wooden box from his neck and handed it to Xiaohua. "Master, since this is the most precious treasure in Songlangzi's cave residence, the restrictions inside must be the most powerful. Master should take this Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal. It might be useful." That's a filial disciple. Xiaohua smiled and put it in his sleeve. "Don't worry. If there is an opportunity, Master will help you rescue by N. Thank you for everything, Master." Fu Jiwen jumped down from the cloud bed and said, "If there are any difficult restrictions, disciple won't go in. Disciple's magic power is weak. If I go, I'll be a burden to Master." "Oh, you're not too greedy. You know when to advance and when to retreat. You're much better than Master." Xiaohua was a little surprised. If it was him, he would risk his life to charge in. But then Xiaohua was stunned. He looked at Fu Jiwen with a smile and said, "Disciple, are you trying to persuade Master?" "A little." Fu Jiwen's smile disappeared and he respectfully said, "Master, disciple has followed Master into Songlangzi's cave residence. Along the way, disciple has gained a lot, far more than disciple expected. This is something that disciple didn't dare to imagine. If disciple has gained so much, then Master's gains must be far greater than disciple's. Disciple has been under Master's protection for a lot of time. I didn't see Master in any danger, but disciple can imagine Master's narrow escape. Master, the so-called luck will come to an end one day. Master has already obtained Songlangzi's orthodoxy. Why don't you quit while you're ahead?" Xiaohua looked at Fu Jiwen, who was worried about him, and his heart felt warm. He smiled and said, "Master's luck is far from what you know. Master's luck is comparable to the luck of a country, comparable to the luck of a province. Although the maze designed by Songlangzi is powerful, it is still nothing in Master's eyes." Chapter 3767. But Master Fu Jiwen still wanted to say more, but Xiaohua continued, "Master's knowledge is very complex, and you can't imagine it. Senior Songlangzi seems to be similar to Master, and Senior Songlangzi's cave is the biggest opportunity Master has encountered so far. In other words, after getting out of this misty mountain maze, Master doesn't need to look for other ancient ruins, as they are meaningless to Master. What's more, Master doesn't feel any sense of crisis, which means that the biggest secret hidden in this cave won't pose a threat to Master's life." Okay, Fu Jiwen knew that he couldn't persuade Xiaohua, so he nodded and said, "Disciple can only say this if Master insists on exploring. Disciple can only wish Master a fruitful return. You don't have to wait here, you also have to follow Master." Xiaohua's words surprised Fu Jiwen. Fu Jiwen was surprised. This is Songlangzi's cave, since Huang Shou and others can come in. Others can also come in. Especially since Master obtained Senior Songlangzi's orthodoxy. You and I have been in this cave for 3 whole years. Xiaohua said with a smile. Zhaixingzi, Sun Kong, and Zhang Daoran were also trapped in the maze for 3 years. When Master came down from the cloud bed, there seemed to be some changes in this cave, and the maze might have disappeared. And these people could come in immediately. If they come in, Master won't be here, and only you are here. How will you answer other people's questions? Fu Jiwen nodded. Moreover, Master calculated that you would be more scared than in danger. Previously, with Fairy Su Ming's self-detonation, you were indeed in danger, but that little bit of danger couldn't be seen in Master's eyes. Master feels that you should still follow Master to broaden your horizons. After all, this kind of opportunity is not available to everyone. Xiaohua explained. Fu Jiwen knew that Xiaohua was protecting him, so how could he not know what was good for him? He hurriedly bowed and said, "Disciple thanks Master. You can stand on the side. First, let Master see what this restriction is." Xiaohua had already used his soul sense to clearly see that this cloud bed was not one with the stone wall. It was just that the cloud bed was extremely close to the stone wall. Relying solely on the naked eye, even a cultivator's naked eye would not be able to distinguish the two. What puzzled Xiaohua the most was that there was no magic power fluctuation coming from where the cloud bed came into contact with the stone wall. He also didn't find anything out of place with his soul sense. After Fu Jiwen moved aside, Xiaohua slapped his forehead. The illusion breaker eyes flashed with a dark green brilliance and opened. When he saw that the stone wall before him was the same as before, Xiaohua was completely disappointed. He sucked in a breath of air and closed his eyes with his brows tightly furrowed. That's impossible. Xiaohua thought to himself. How could there be nothing wrong with this cloud bed? Could it be that Senior Songlongzi had set up an empty fort strategy here? But even if it's an empty fort strategy, what is he trying to hide? After thinking for a moment, Xiaohua's illusion breaker eyes slightly blinked. A silver-white ring of light rippled from his eyes. Xiaohua pushed his illusion breaker eyes to the limit. Haha, here. Xiaohua looked for a moment, then finally laughed loudly, so it was hidden so subtly. If it weren't for this Zhao's illusion breaker eyes and the Buddhist sect's heavenly eye, I'm afraid it really would be difficult to see this point of light that's even fainter than a needle's eye. Seeing Xiaohua laugh, Fu Jiwen was also stunned. With a tone of disbelief he said, Master, you really found something? Of course. Xiaohua withdrew his heavenly eye. With a flick of his Taoist robe, he used universe-concealing sleeves and laughed. Take a look at Master's power. Rise this time was different from the previous probing. Xiaohua used 70% of his magic power. Unfortunately, the cloud bed didn't move under his big hand. It didn't even sway. This really made Xiaohua stunned. That's impossible. Xiaohua knew the power of his universe-concealing sleeves. With his current strength, not to mention a cloud bed that was several zhang in size, even a small mountain would collapse. This old man understands now. Suddenly, Xiaohua seemed to have thought of something. He hurriedly withdrew his magic power and urged the heavenly law's embodiment technique. A huge golden body flashed with a dark golden brilliance. At this time, Xiaohua grabbed the two sides of the cloud bed. Relying only on the strength of his body, he shouted. Rise boom! The cloud bed was like a 10,000 jin mountain that was slowly lifted by Xiaohua. As the cloud bed was lifted, the entire immortal cave trembled. It was as if Xiaohua was lifting the entire cloud mountain. As it trembled, that cloud bed had only moved to a height of a few feet. Woo! A fishy wind blew out from under the cloud bed, enveloping Xiaohua's golden body and the wide-eyed Fu Jiwen at the side. A force so strong that even Xiaohua was unable to resist was generated. Without the slightest fluctuation of magic power, without the slightest splendor, the two people strangely disappeared just like that. Boom! The cloud bed fell. The entire cloud mountain shook. Every cultivator that stepped into the immortal cave also slightly swayed. In the blink of an eye, Xiaohua and Fu Jiwen's feet landed on the ground. The scene in front of them changed greatly. Xiaohua didn't have time to withdraw his golden body. He immediately released his soul sense to explore. It was a space that was hundreds of feet wide. The walls of the space were covered with thick murals. On the murals, there were mountains and rivers, strange beasts and giants, vast forests and vast yellow sands. However, there were no ordinary people in the murals. There were also no towns or villages. Xiaohua's soul sense only roughly looked at these murals that were filled with a primitive aura. He left his soul sense at the end of this space. That place was 100 zhang in size altar. The altar was in the shape of a hill. Rugged bones were placed on top of it. Bloody and abnormal totems were smeared on the altar. These totems were very strange. Some were in the shape of flames, some were in the shape of glaciers, and some were in the shape of strange beasts. Even when they reached the top of the altar, there were skeletons, leg bones, ghosts, and other unimaginable shapes. Ouch! Just as Xiaohua was looking at the altar again, Fu Jiwen suddenly screamed from the side. What's wrong? Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand, and a seal was placed around Fu Jiwen. Fu Jiwen curled up on the ground in pain. He lowered his voice and groaned, Master, disciple, use my soul sense to explore these murals. Countless images rushed into disciple's mind. Disciple can't bear it. And now I have a splitting headache. Alright, you should take a rest. Xiaohua took out the Kunlun mirror and put Fujiwen into it. He looked at the murals around him. He didn't release his soul sense, but still used his soul sense to check the altar. After Xiaohua finished looking at the last few strange totems, his soul sense fell on the top of the altar. It was an oval platform about a foot in size. There was a groove on it, and in the groove, there was a shabby oil lamp. Isn't this the shabby oil lamp that I obtained in Sky Patrol City? Isn't this the soul tool from Million Ming Mountains? How did it appear here? Xiaohua was stunned when he saw the oil lamp. He hurriedly waved his hand and took out the oil lamp that he had forgotten in the corner of the space. Sure enough, although there were some slight differences in the style of the two oil lamps, they were the same in terms of texture and general style. No, this isn't a soul tool. Xiaohua suddenly realized. At that time, the cultivator said that this was an item from the 10,000 demon realm. He took it from a soul cultivator. Could this altar be related to the 10,000 demon realm? But even if it is related to the 10,000 demon realm, what's the use of this altar? Xiaohua was completely confused. Songlongzi is our Dao Sex Tribulation Stage Senior. What does he mean by hiding such an altar in his cave residence? Could it be that Senior Songlongzi is related to the 10,000 demon realm? Then Xiaohua recalled again. It seemed that Songlongzi didn't have any records about this altar. Maybe it's recorded in the ink cloud pupil? Xiaohua thought for a moment, and took out the ink cloud pupil that Fujiwen took. After a little hesitation, he looked at it again. However, Xiaohua didn't expect that the ink cloud pupil didn't have any records at all. This is one of Songlongzi's biggest secrets. Xiaohua put away the ink cloud pupil and narrowed his eyes. He looked at the strange altar thoughtfully. After a few minutes, Xiaohua temporarily moved his soul consciousness and eyes away from the altar and released his divine sense to explore the murals around him. Boom boom boom. Sure enough, as Fujiwen said, when Xiaohua's divine sense came into contact with the murals, vivid images fell into Xiaohua's mind like giant meteors. The impact made Xiaohua's blood vessels expand. This is also a kind of test? After Xiaohua finished looking at some of the murals gave off a strange light. Correspondingly, a totem on the altar flashed and had a faint color. Bloodline power? Looking at the murals one by one, Xiaohua discovered that they were all pictures of ancient times. Furthermore, every time an ancient picture entered his mind, Xiaohua's bloodline would be stimulated, and an indescribable power would gradually be born around Xiaohua's body. When Xiaohua finished looking at all of the murals, a desolate, boundless, and even bloody aura rushed out from the altar and filled the entire space. Could this altar be the remains of a soul cultivator? Xiaohua looked at the altar that seemed to have come to life, his eyes narrowing and narrowing. Although his soul cultivation was not shallow, he was still a little nervous when faced with the mysterious remains of a soul cultivator. But if I want to know if the Dawn Rain continent and the other 3 continents are in the same realm, I might have to take a trip to the remains of a soul cultivator. Maybe I can even find the passage to the Million Ming Mountains. With that thought in mind, Xiaohua looked at the oil lamp in his hand and waved it toward the altar. Unfortunately, when the oil lamp fell, the altar didn't move. Chapter 3768. Lamp Oil. Xiaohua suddenly woke up and hurriedly took down the oil lamp and put a drop of lamp oil into it. After seeing that there was still no reaction from the lamp oil, he waved his hand and a strand of spirit fire flew up to the altar and landed on the oil lamp. Swoosh! The spirit fire lit up the quaint oil lamp. Aovo, under the light of the fire, the oil lamp trembled slightly as if it was alive. Strange runes bloomed from the outer layer of the oil lamp, and then a strange beast with 7 colors appeared from the oil lamp. 7 light beast? Xiaohua looked at the familiar runes and then looked at the strange beast. He was almost dumbfounded. He didn't know about the 7 light beast before, but there were some marks in Little White's memory. It was a rare soul beast in the 10,000 demon realm. It was said that each of the lights of the 7 light beast could cause different damage to the soul of a demon or a human. He didn't expect that the oil lamp was actually a 7 light beast. The 7 light beast let out a desolate groan, and the 7-colored brilliance fell from the altar like a whirlpool. Every time it passed by a totem, the totem would turn into a strange beast. Even the totem that was difficult to understand turned into a strange beast that Little White had never seen before. When all the totems were lit up, all the strange beasts flew out of their totems and circled around the altar. Then, a loud sound of a bugle horn came from the altar. Following the sound of the bugle horn, the strange beasts transformed into all kinds of strange shapes and swam in the air. These shapes were somewhat ordinary, such as triangular, square, and some were more strange, like swimming fish and hedgehogs. Xiaohua was somewhat baffled. However, when a strange beast's mouth appeared in the air, and then a shape that looked like a square but wasn't a square, and under the square shape, there were 4 legs. Xiaohua was very lucky and a flash of light appeared in his mind. Xiyin Ding? This is the entrance to the legacy world. Xiaohua almost screamed out. Wasn't that strange beast's mouth the same as the one that appeared when he sacrificially refined the Xiyin Ding in the sword tomb? Wasn't that the shape of a cauldron? Wasn't this 7-colored brilliance Xiyin Ding's 7 colors? Xiaohua was ecstatic. He never thought that he would encounter the entrance to the legacy world here. At this time, there was only one question in his mind. Song Lang. Who is he? However, there was no time for him to think about it. Xiyin Ding was immediately taken out from the space, and he didn't have any extra movements. The beast's mouth in the light made a strange sound, and the 7-colored brilliance turned into a strange beast. It rushed out of the altar, and the beast was Xiyin Ding was in Xiaohua. Its aggressive aura made Xiaohua couldn't help but take 3 steps back. Roar Xiyin Ding fell into the beast's mouth, and the 7-colored brilliance of the strange beast disappeared in a flash. When the strange beast returned, Xiyin Ding was exactly where it was before. Buzz Xiyin Ding fell, and the whole cauldron trembled violently. Waves of obscure fluctuations rushed towards the altar. Wherever the fluctuations passed, all the images and totems turned into fragments, and crashed into the altar along with the fluctuations swoosh. The altar collapsed with a loud rumble, and the 7-colored brilliance also shattered. An aura that seemed to be able to destroy the heaven and earth gushed out from these fragments. All of the fragments transformed into a powerful current that rushed toward Xiaohua. Metal escape technique. Xiaohua remembered clearly that the metal escape technique was the method to enter the legacy world. He immediately urged the metal escape technique to rush head-on into the torrent. Boom! Like a swimming fish, Xiaohua only felt countless grotesque illusions appear in front of his eyes. His entire body once again moved against the flow of these illusions. When he reached the altar, a vague barrier blocked in front of Xiaohua. As Xiaohua exerted all his strength to activate his magic power, Xiaohua's body passed through the barrier with some difficulty. Immediately, a powerful pressure fell from all directions, and a familiar feeling appeared in Xiaohua's heart. Shortly after, the silver-white brilliance turned into a revolving passage, and Xiaohua's body rapidly passed through this passage. The passage was extremely long, and also seemed to be extremely short. In a moment, Xiaohua's eyes were dazzled by a glaring light. He couldn't help but slightly close his eyes. The moment he closed his eyes, his body stopped. When Xiaohua opened his eyes, a familiar feeling emerged from the bottom of his heart. Regardless of whether it was the scene before his eyes or the aura that filled the space. Raising his head, Xiaohua saw clearly that the entire sky was illuminated by 9 suns. It was extremely similar to the sky in his space, but the difference was that on the other side of the 9 suns, there were unexpectedly 10 moons. Moreover, the moons were several times larger than the suns. What was special was that the sky was densely packed with many stars. From the sun star, the moon star, and countless other stars, huge pillars of stars fell down. These huge pillars of stars covered the entire space, and the aura of desolation and the feeling of desolation were all emitted from these pillars of stars. The power of the stars and the moon. In an instant, Xiaohua cried out in surprise. I understand now. This is the power of the stars and the moon. In addition to the spiritual energy of heaven and earth used by the cultivators of my Taoism, and the awe-inspiring energy used by the scholars of Confucianism, the demon race of this world actually uses the power of the stars and the moon. Thinking of this, Xiaohua waved his hand and took out the 2 bones with mysterious talismans from the space. Sure enough, the talismans glowed under the power of the stars and the moon, and 2 powerful auras emerged from the talismans. Putting away the bones, Xiaohua released his divine sense. Wherever his divine sense passed, the scene within 1,000 miles fell into Xiaohua's mind bit by bit. It was a huge tree, a huge rock, a mountain peak, and a wilderness. It was exactly the same as the murals on the walls of the space where the altar was previously. Boom! Just as Xiaohua was exploring, a powerful vibration came from the top of his head. Xiaohua's figure flashed, and just as he dodged, a huge Xi'an cauldron fell from the sky, landing right under Xiaohua's body. At this time, the Xi'an cauldron was probably 100 feet tall, and in front of it, Xiaohua looked just like an ant. Roar! Xiaohua squinted his eyes and looked at the strange runes on the Xi'an cauldron. With a loud roar, he used the heavenly law embodiment technique and the immortal body bestowment technique. The pillar of light from the stars and the moon turned into crystal threads visible to the naked eye and fell into Xiaohua's body. Along with the pillar of light, Xiaohua's transcendence golden body was born with a loud bang. It grew bigger by a zhang, and in just a moment, it was actually 200 feet tall. The immortal body bestowment technique is indeed the immortal body bestowment technique. Xiaohua felt that the power of the stars and the moon was even smoother than the energy of heaven and earth as it tempered his body. He couldn't help but sigh. This is a divine ability used by the immortal body bestowment technique. What it tempered was not the energy of heaven and earth, but the power of the stars and the moon. It's just that the immortal body bestowment technique is no longer the immortal body bestowment technique, and the power of the stars and the moon is no longer the power of the stars and the moon. It can only be barely replaced by the energy of heaven and earth. The current Xiaohua naturally didn't know how to use the power of the stars and the moon. He could only wave his hand, and the Xi'an cauldron fell into his hand again. When the Xi'an cauldron fell into his hand, some information from the Xi'an cauldron entered his mind. What? Holy bloodline? What does this mean? The moment the information appeared, Xiaohua couldn't help but reveal an expression of shock. When he finished reading it, an inconceivable feeling arose in his heart. Damn it, this Xiao understands now. This so-called legacy world wasn't just a barrier jointly set up by the ancient demonic beasts for their descendants. In this barrier, the purest bloodline of the ancient demonic beasts was preserved, allowing their descendants who had lost their bloodline to come here to find their bloodline and pass on the glory of the demonic beast race. Furthermore, in this barrier, they used the bloodline of the 10,000 races to carry out a plan that spanned hundreds of millions of years. They wanted to give birth to the holy bloodline that the demonic beast race had never had before, a bloodline that could surpass the 10,000 races and 10,000 saints of the demonic beast race. This is too crazy, too inconceivable. Thinking up to here, Xiaohua looked towards another direction with a strange expression, and shock appeared in his eyes. How is this possible? How do I know the location of the holy bloodline? I found out from the Xi'an cauldron that the location of the bloodline of the Yu family in Fallen Gold Mountain is normal. The Xi'an cauldron didn't have any information about the location of the holy bloodline. How do I know? Moreover, I just entered this legacy realm. Although I have seen all the scenery on the murals outside, it's normal for me to feel a sense of familiarity. But this kind of desolate aura, how can I be familiar with it? Could it be that I've been to the legacy realm before? Or perhaps this memory came from Little White? A series of questions naturally arose from the bottom of Xiaohua's heart, leaving him at a loss. What should I do now? Xiaohua put away the Xi'an cauldron and looked at the two directions with some hesitation. He didn't know where he should go. Roar! Before Xiaohua could make a decision, an ear-piercing cry sounded. A bird that was several hundred feet in size flapped its wings and descended from the sky. Its sharp beak, which was several hundred feet in size, pierced towards Xiaohua's chest. In midair, wherever the beak passed, cracks appeared in the void, and a ferocious killing intent that seemed to have materialized penetrated Xiaohua's golden body. Damn it! Seeing that the thin fleshy wings of the bird were covered with talismans and countless beams of starlight and moonlight rushed into these talismans, how could Xiaohua not know the power of this bird's attack? He roared and took out the wishful staff. Grow, 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 grow. At the same time, Xiaohua released the godly power centipede. In an instant, the wishful staff turned into 100 feet in size. Xiaohua's body surged with lightning, and his figure rushed into the air like lightning. The wishful staff was raised to meet the falling bird. The godly power centipede also borrowed the power of Xiaohua, and wisps of demon clouds surged around its body. Under these demon clouds, the godly power centipede's body suddenly expanded, growing to several hundred feet in size. It rushed aggressively towards the bird. Chapter 3769. Boom! A loud sound came from the sky. The ferocious bird was hit back and forth in the air. Xiaohua's golden body was hit by the ferocious bird and fell to the ground. Hundreds of giant trees were broken. A towering mountain was also hit by Xiaohua's golden body, and half of it collapsed. On the land that no one had set foot on for many years, a deep pit of hundreds of feet in length and dozens of feet in size was impressively visible. Although the movement of the fight was great, it was somewhat insignificant in the space of the untainted land. As for the divine power centipede, although its size had become bigger, it was still less than 100 feet away from the abdomen of the ferocious bird like lightning. It was about to wave its claws and cut into the wings of the ferocious bird, but the powerful air wave and the ferocious bird's breath suddenly knocked the divine power centipede upside down. As the saying goes, hooligans are not scary, but hooligans with culture are scary. If it was the divine power centipede, it would be, monsters are not scary, but monsters with spiritual wisdom are scary. However, when the dangerous breath arrived, the divine power centipede's body immediately shrank and curled up extremely. Not to mention that the ferocious bird's wings did not hit the divine power centipede. Even if it hit, the divine power centipede would not be hurt. Damn it! Seeing this, Xiaohua angrily cursed. He climbed up from the ground and stamped his feet. The whole earth trembled. His figure rushed into the sky again. When he took back the divine power centipede, he waved his hand again and the seal of the sea flew out of the space, and was about to hit the ferocious bird in the distance. However, when the seal of ocean overturning seal landed in midair, it didn't have the surging of 10,000 jade talismans that Xiaohua had imagined. Even the copper-colored light seemed weak. Not good. Not only can my monster not be compared to this ferocious bird, but I can't use my magic weapon. Xiaohua took out his magic weapon, and the ferocious bird also felt the danger. It spread its wings and prepared to attack again. Under the stimulation of Xiaohua's spiritual power, he immediately found that the qi of heaven and earth in this space was extremely weak. I neglected it. This is the world of the legacy created by the monster clan. Although it is similar to the untainted land, it is not the untainted land. There is only the power of the stars and the moon in this world, and there is no qi of heaven and earth. Even the qi of righteousness does not exist. This Xiaohua's Taoist and Confucian magic cannot be used. But, so what? Xiaohua raised his head and looked over. The entire legacy realm was vast and boundless, and everything was incomparably huge. Even his small and cautious heart was now fermenting like a lofty ambition that soared to the clouds. A surge of arrogance that soared to the heavens was born from Xiaohua's heart. With this Zhao's cultivation, would I still be afraid of these flat birds? Xiaohua raised his head and yelled. The muscles on his golden body rapidly overflowed. At the same time, his entire figure once again pounced forward, and at the same time, his spiritual hammer was activated. Boom 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 in the sky where the ferocious bird was flying, the invisible giant hammer let out a whimper of the wind, completely enveloping the several acres of space to the left of the ferocious bird. This hammer of divine will was extremely mysterious. That ferocious bird immediately felt a dangerous aura. Both of its wings rapidly flapped, and a powerful whirlwind rushed out from both of its wings. At the same time, the ferocious bird let out a long cry. It raised its head, and a talisman that was several zhang in size rushed into the air, and quickly met the hammer of divine will. Boom! A fireball that was several times stronger than Xiaohua's talisman exploded under the hammer of divine will. Woo! It was at this time that Xiaohua's wishful staff came over and hit the neck of the ferocious bird. The ferocious bird's figure was once again hit and flipped in the air. The sharp claws that were exposed in front of Xiaohua's eyes also had traces of strange talismans. Xiaohua did not dare to neglect. When he was about to rush over again, he saw the ferocious bird suddenly let out a sad cry. It spread its wings and flew in another direction. Its speed was extremely fast. Xiaohua had just noticed that the ferocious bird had already flown 1,000 feet away. If the world's essence was abundant, Xiaohua's thunder escape technique might be able to catch up, but at this time, Xiaohua could only look at it from afar and frown. Ancient ferocious beasts are also powerful? Xiaohua not only could not catch up, but he also did not dare to. Looking at the hot aura in the air that had not yet dissipated, he thought, let's not talk about other things. Let's talk about this ferocious bird. Its attack is not systematic. It only relies on instinct. It only uses its beak and has not used its claws or wings. Even when this ferocious bird saw Xiaohua's spiritual hammer and was hit by the wishful staff, it immediately retreated. This is obviously the meaning of cowardice. In other words, this ferocious bird is not a ferocious bird at all. It is just the most ordinary bird in this relic world. However, this lowest level bird was born with such magical powers. The talisman in its mouth is more powerful than Xiaohua's fire talisman. Fire talisman, that is a jade talisman that has been lost in the Dawn Rain continent. Unexpectedly, it was actually defeated by a bird here. I really don't know how powerful ancient demonic beasts can be. Xiinding also did not record that there are demonic beasts in the relic world. These demonic beasts should not be originally in the relic world. Perhaps they were brought in by the descendants of the demonic beasts, or perhaps they grew in the relic world. In short, these demonic beasts should have nothing to do with the inheritance of the bloodline. They also have nothing to do with the bloodline of the Supreme Saint. Xiaohua pondered again. It's just that with these demonic beasts, it will be somewhat troublesome for Xiaohua to go to those two places. There will be a lot of demonic beasts along the way in the end. Where should I go? Or both places? If I think about it simply, Xiaohua has nothing to do with the Yu family of Fallen Gold Mountain. Even if Xiaohua obtains their bloodline, it may not be useful. Xiaohua should go directly to find the Supreme Saint's bloodline. But the problem is that it is the Supreme Saint's bloodline. Even the real ancient demonic beasts do not dare to say that they can accept the Supreme Saint's inheritance. How can Xiaohua, a human, dare to say that he can accept it? If Xiaohua only wants to find the inheritance of the Yu family of Fallen Gold Mountain, then what about the memories in Xiaohua's mind? Who knows, maybe Xiaohua will be able to find his own origin in the location of the Supreme Saint's bloodline. Of course, if I can get the bloodline of the Yu family of Fallen Gold Mountain, even if I can play with it for myself, wouldn't it be better than leaving it to their descendants? Xiaohua thought and thought, then began to think dirty again. It's a pity that Xiaohua only has Xiinding as a keepsake. If I have other keepsakes, maybe I can help Fairy Hongxia and Huang Mengxiang find their ancient bloodline. Forget it, I'll look for the Supreme Saint's bloodline first. Things that harm others without benefiting myself should be left for last. After thinking, Xiaohua withdrew his golden avatar and very carefully released his soul sense. He even used a soul cultivator's flying technique to fly at a low altitude. Although Xiaohua had already deliberately lowered his altitude to fly, he had only just flown 1,000 feet when a killing intent several times stronger than the previous flying bird quickly rushed over from a direction. Xiaohua hurriedly swept his soul sense in that direction, only to see a several hundred feet large dauntless bird, with its wings spread open, practically covering the sky as it flew towards him. Granny, I'm afraid it's at the 6th or 7th level of elemental energy. Xiaohua immediately understood that the vicious bird just now wasn't afraid of him, but was scared away by the dauntless bird. Moreover, seeing that the dauntless bird's body was much stronger than the previous vicious bird, and its pair of fleshy wings were even more robust, how could Xiaohua not know that this dauntless bird was even more powerful? Xiaohua cursed in his heart, and hurriedly used his wind escape technique to fly in the direction of the vicious bird from before. Who didn't know how to use the tiger's might to intimidate others? Who knows, he might even be able to pull off a disaster. Xiaohua's wind escape technique had actually been cultivated to an extremely high level within the rockfall matrix. When he flew, it was like a cool breeze passing through a mountain, without a trace, extremely miraculous. However, this wind escape technique was somewhat lacking when compared to the dauntless bird's wings. But seeing the dauntless bird spread its wings, it instantly traveled several tens of li, its enormous body not the slightest bit clumsy. Seeing this, How could Xiaohua still dare to have any other misgivings? What magic power consumption? What insufficient elemental energy of heaven and earth? What too big of a movement? He didn't even bother to think about it. Lightning surged around his body, and the leaping thunder realm technique was used, and like a whirlwind, he flew into the distance. The sound of thunder resounded, and that dauntless bird was clearly frightened, somewhat afraid of the lightning around Xiaohua's body. But in the dauntless bird's moment of hesitation, Xiaohua's figure had already disappeared. The dauntless bird let out a long cry, spreading its wings and flying away, seemingly no longer paying attention to Xiaohua. And when Xiaohua's released soul sense saw the dauntless bird fly away, his heart was greatly relieved. Just as he was about to take a breather, roar, dozens of cries came from within 100 li. Xiaohua's soul sense swept out, and his complexion instantly became deathly pale. He saw from behind giant rocks, giant peaks, and giant trees, monstrous beasts several hundred zhang in size emerged. Each and every one of these monstrous beasts had a robust physique, and their appearances were all different. Some were rapidly crawling on the ground. Some were riding on monstrous clouds and rushing into the air. Some were spreading their wings and flying out. Their eyes, which were larger than ordinary people's, were filled with greed and savagery, and their target was precisely the dazed Xiaohua who was standing in midair. At this moment, Xiaohua was like a little wife who had been bullied, his face full of grievances. That's right. Didn't I just use the lightning escape technique? Did it have to be like this? Dozens of savage auras rushed over from all directions, sweeping back and forth within 100 zhang of Xiaohua's body. Although they weren't elemental thoughts, they were more sensitive than elemental thoughts. Xiaohua didn't dare to stay any longer, and he used the wind escape technique to descend to the ground. After all, he could use the earth escape technique in the mountain rocks, and he could use the wood escape technique in the giant trees, which was much stronger than the lightning escape technique. Xiaohua had just landed, when bursts of roars came from the sky. Xiaohua only had time to turn his head to take a look, but he saw that most of the dozens of giant beasts were already tearing at each other, and only a small portion of the strange beasts were chasing after him. Immediately, Xiaohua used the wood escape technique and disappeared into the giant trees. Hiss, the giant beasts descended, and a few of them sniffed at the side for a moment before swaggering away. There were also two that chased after Xiaohua's escape route. Boom boom boom, one by one, the giant trees were knocked flying by these giant beasts. Wood shavings splashed everywhere, and gravel danced in the air. The strange beasts that were hiding in the giant trees were also blasted out. Chapter 3770. Damn it! After running blindly for an unknown amount of time, Xiaohua finally breathed a sigh of relief. He hid behind a boulder and rested for a while. He pondered in his heart. This legacy realm is really not a place for people to stay. Why are the demon beasts here so strong? Each of them has rough skin and thick flesh. Even their souls are very solid. This old man's Taoist divine ability and Confucian divine ability are all useless. My only soul technique is also not enough. When the wishful staff hit them, it was simply like scratching an itch. No matter what, this old man is still a great grandmaster with 5th level essence energy. Why am I like a grandson here? No. After thinking for a while, Xiaohua made a decision. I must get the holy bloodline. Damn it, only with the holy bloodline can I leave safely. Who is it? Just when Xiaohua had just calmed down, he was suddenly shocked again. He saw that on the ground less than 1,000 feet away from him, there was a winding flood dragon that was slowly floating and attacking him. Damn it. Seeing this snake-like demon beast, Xiaohua unconsciously burned with anger. He secretly released his soul consciousness to look around. There were no other demon beasts. The corner of his mouth curled up, and he unconsciously sneered. That flood dragon was naturally not a demon beast of the legacy realm, but Ao Zhan of the East Sea Dragon Palace. Speaking of which, Ao Zhan and the others were also 5th level essence energy. In the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, and the Hidden Immortal Continent, they were demons that could do whatever they wanted. Unfortunately, when they came here, facing a demon beast that had lived for who knows how many years, they could only flee in panic. The first demon beast to enter the legacy realm was a Thunder Flood Dragon. That Thunder Flood Dragon was extremely sensitive to the aura of the Dragon Clan. It roared and urged the lightning to chase after Ao Zhan, Ao Qian and Ao Shui. It even left behind a low-level demon like old demon Ji Feng. Zhu Mei and the other demons wanted to help the 3 dragons. Unfortunately, when the 6 demons were about to join forces to kill the Thunder Flood Dragon, there were immediately other demon beasts that flew over to help. As such, the 6 demons had no choice but to flee. What made Ao Zhan feel the most humiliated was that the 3 demonic beasts were being watched closely by the Thunder Flood Dragon. However, after escaping for half a day, the Thunder Flood Dragon summoned the other demonic beasts to attack them again. For the sake of Ao Qian's safety, Ao Zhan had no choice but to stay behind to fend off the enemies. He even used a secret technique to lure the Thunder Flood Dragon and the other demonic beasts to the side. At this moment, he had just escaped the pursuit of the Thunder Flood Dragon and the other demonic beasts. He revealed his true form and hid here to catch his breath, just like Xiaohua. Of course, for his own safety, Ao Zhan didn't dare to release his Yuan Shen. This was because he realized that although the demonic beasts in the Cold Spirit Valley didn't have Yuan Shen, they were very sensitive to Yuan Shen. Their kind of instinctive aura was also very effective. Ao Zhan suddenly heard the words of a Confucian cultivator from the hidden immortal continent. Then dozens of heavy blows fell from the sky like falling stars. There was even a human figure wielding a long staff falling from the sky. Who are you? Ao Zhan hurriedly shouted. Are you also here to train in the Cold Spirit Valley? Unfortunately, in a hurry, Ao Zhan instinctively spoke in the dragon language. How could Xiaohua understand? Boom! The divine will hammer angrily fell, smashing right on top of Ao Zhan's scales. The scales that originally had some scars sank deep with a poof sound, and a trace of blood seeped out. Ao Zhan screamed, no longer caring about hiding his body. The huge dragon body rolled, and the dragon tail rolled towards Xiaohua. Xiaohua's wishful steel staff was originally aimed at Ao Zhan's dragon head. Now he could only turn around, and the wishful steel staff swept the dragon tail. Wu Ao Zhan cried out in pain. His dragon tail rolled back, and Xiaohua was also sent flying into the sky by the dragon tail. At the same time, dozens of divine sense hammers landed on Ao Zhan's body one after another. Ao Zhan either waved his silver spear to block or raised his fist to strike back. However, there were still some divine sense hammers that landed on Ao Zhan's face. Damn it! Xiaohua rushed into the sky and saw that the divine will hammers were not effective. His body flashed with golden light, and the heavenly law embodiment technique was displayed. The wishful steel staff in his hand turned into nearly 100 feet in size. The 100 feet tall Dharma body raised the wishful steel staff and said anxiously, "Evil creature, hit him as well." Wang Ao Zhan also couldn't take it anymore. His dragon body curled up and returned to his original size. His several 100 feet long body was like a giant mountain that rushed towards Xiaohua. Moreover, his dragon head opened and a dragon aura that was several 100 feet long mixed with thousands of strands of golden energy shot towards Xiaohua like an incomparably sharp flying sword. Xiaohua did not dare to be negligent. He waved his hand and took out the seal of the Overturn the Sea. Although it was not as arrogant as outside the relic world, under the urging of the nascent soul, it also turned into 100 feet in size, ready to block in front of the dragon chi. But at this moment, caw-caw, there was a piercing sound, and a big bird fell from the sky like lightning. This big bird was very strange. Its wings flashed with golden light, and the purple-gold sarcoma on its stork-like head was particularly obvious. This caw-caw bird's cry fell into the ears of Xiaohua and Ao Zhan. Whether it was a human or a demon, they all felt a sense of numbness in their bones. Damn it! This strange bird seems to have the bloodline of the golden-winged peng. Xiaohua was shocked and did not dare to continue fighting. His whole body flashed with a dark golden light, and he flew in one direction. Seeing Xiaohua escape, Ao Zhan also wanted to escape, but with a sweep of his primordial thought, the fierce battle between the human and demon just now had already attracted the attention of other strange beasts. Besides the direction Xiaohua fled in, there were other demon beasts approaching, and those demon beasts were all very strong. Damn it! Ao Zhan also cursed. His dragon body hurriedly shrunk, and he followed Xiaohua's back. However, Ao Zhan had just flown for half a meal's time when Xiaohua took the time to release his primordial thought. He saw a small dragon actually chasing behind him, even more infatuated than the golden-winged prung, and he couldn't help but feel angry. He slapped the top of his head, and the green-robed Xiaohua controlled the invisible nascent soul to fly out. A beam of light shot out, and it was precisely Ao Zhan's dragon head. Damn it, you actually want to eat me. I can't deal with the golden-winged prung, but killing you is not a big problem. Seeing the beam of light shoot out, Xiaohua thought fiercely. He turned around and rushed in another direction. Seeing the Kunlun mirror's beam of light shoot over, Ao Zhan sucked in a breath of cold air. How could he not know the power of this Taoist magic treasure? In his heart he was already sure that the one fleeing like him must be a Taoist cultivator from the hidden immortal continent. Wu Ao Zhan didn't dare to be careless. His dragon horn flickered with a silver-white brilliance, and a silver shield that was almost 3 meters in size appeared. It flew towards the beam of light, and there was an ancient talisman on the shield. Boom! The beam of light struck the shield, and the ancient talisman suddenly absorbed the abundant energy of the stars and moon in the surroundings. The silver brilliance shone brightly, but under the beam of light, the brilliance was still shattered into pieces and scattered into a myriad of stars. Spirit weapon? A very ancient legend suddenly appeared in Ao Zhan's mind. Ao Zhan couldn't help but groan. He looked at Xiaohua's back with extreme astonishment. Damn it, Ao Zhan's astonishment only lasted for a moment. He was blocked by Xiaohua, and the golden-winged prung and other demonic beasts chased after him. Ao Zhan cursed in a low voice, and his figure flew up. Unfortunately, when he swept with his essence, he complained in his heart. In front of him, there were already other demonic beasts beginning to block his path. Only the direction Xiaohua flew in was free of demonic beasts. Ao Zhan had no choice but to chase after Xiaohua again. Damn it! You really want to die? Xiaohua didn't understand, and unconsciously became furious. Xiaohua, who was already anxious from being chased by demonic beasts, couldn't help but rush out. With a shake of his hand, the soaring dragon shears appeared in his hand. His fleeing figure began to slow down, and his soul sense slowly swept out, preparing to catch Ao Zhan off guard without attracting his attention. Fellow immortal at this time, Ao Zhan couldn't care about anything else. Since the golden-winged prung was here, preserving his life was more important. He hurriedly transmitted, "This one is a dragon guard of the Dragon Palace," but before he could finish speaking, he saw Xiaohua wave his right hand, and a golden light scattered out. A kind of feeling that made Ao Zhan involuntarily tremble was born. Damn it, Ao Zhan was also angry. He was about to raise the silver spear in his hand, but suddenly he was slightly stunned. He suddenly understood, and hurriedly transmitted in the language of the hidden immortal continent. "Fellow immortal, I'm not a demonic beast. I'm from the dragon clan of the East Sea Dragon Palace." Ah? When Xiaohua heard Ao Zhan's words, he was even more astonished than Ao Zhan. He didn't expect that there was actually a non-demonic beast in the legacy world. Moreover, this demonic beast was actually from the East Sea Dragon Palace. Ouch! Xiaohua hurriedly urged his magic power to stop the soaring dragon shears. Seeing that unbelievably sharp golden light flash back in front of his eyes, Ao Zhan's heart slightly jumped. Normally, he wouldn't care about Xiaohua's attack. But now his body was injured, and there was a demonic beast chasing behind him. He didn't want to fight with Xiaohua head-on. You're a dragon of the East Sea Dragon Palace?" Xiaohua withdrew the soaring dragon shears, and his figure was still flying. He asked while being on guard. Ao Zhan withdrew his dragon form, and turned into his human form. He replied, "Yes, this one is a dragon guard of the East Sea Dragon Palace, Ao Zhan." I wonder if fellow immortal. Without waiting for him to finish speaking, Xiaohua hurriedly transmitted, "Should quickly hide with me." Xiaohua didn't finish speaking, and his figure landed beside a huge rock. His figure rapidly shrank, and stood there like a stick. At first glance, it was absolutely impossible to find him. How could Ao Zhan have Xiaohua's rich experience in escaping? He quickly scanned with his elemental will, but he still couldn't find the place. "Quickly go, there's a tree hole above the huge tree. It'll be good if you can slightly hide your aura." Xiaohua saw Ao Zhan still standing there foolishly, and couldn't help but shout while pointing at a huge tree. "Oh, okay." Ao Zhan followed Xiaohua's finger and flew over, not even using his elemental will to look. Swordsmanship was indeed a great master with 5th-grade elemental energy. Although he didn't cultivate the disguise secret technique like Xiaohua, he still shrank his figure and hid in the tree hole. However, Aozhan was still nervous. He didn't have the confidence to conceal his aura and not be discovered by the golden-winged Great Prung. Chapter 3771. Aozhan felt a little sad when he saw the auras surging towards him from all directions. He started to blame himself for trusting Xiaohua so easily. Aozhan couldn't help but want to transform and escape again. However, at this moment, there was an angry roar. Another giant beast flew over from the distance. This giant beast was also a few hundred feet in size. There were a few broom-like wings on its back. Its body emitted a dark gray light. Once the giant beast appeared, it immediately pounced towards the golden-winged Great Prung. Jie, how could the golden-winged Great Prung be afraid? With a scream, it gave up on Aozhan and pounced towards the mutated beast. The other 10 demonic beasts also stopped at the same time. They either hid at the side or quickly escaped. Aozhan was still dumbfounded as he watched the 2 mutated beasts fight. While he was dumbfounded, Xiaohua's voice transmission rang in his ears. Xiaohua's figure swayed like the wind and quickly escaped in a direction. Aozhan really admired Xiaohua's godlike escaping ability. He didn't hesitate to follow behind Xiaohua. It was unknown whether Aozhan's luck was too bad or Xiaohua's luck was exhausted. The two of them only escaped for a moment. Rumble, a thunderous sound came from the side. The thunder flood dragon that was shaken off by Aozhan was chasing after him at lightning speed. Its ferocious eyes contained a kind of anger, as if it was being teased by Aozhan. Immortal friend, run. Aozhan hurriedly shouted. This thunder flood dragon can smell my aura. It's not easy for me to hide. I can't implicate you. As he spoke, Aozhan took out an extremely small pearl from the heaven and earth bracelet on his arm. Inside it flashed lightning. What is this? Seeing Aozhan take out the pearl, Xiaohua's yuan will swept across the thunder flood dragon, and then looked at the thunder pearl in Aozhan's hand. His heart moved and he asked curiously, Immortal friend, what are you doing with this item? The thunder flood dragon likes to eat lightning. This is condensed from the lightning of the 9 heavens. I'm using this item to lure the thunder flood dragon away. Aozhan looked at the thunder flood dragon nervously and said absent-mindedly. Xiaohua smiled and shouted, Immortal friend, I see that you have injuries on your body. If I'm not wrong, you should be injured by the thunder flood dragon. If you use the thunder pearl, I'm afraid it won't work. How about this? I'll help you lure the thunder flood dragon away, and you only need to pay a small price. Oh, you. Aozhan couldn't believe it. Although Xiaohua's ability to escape was high, his strength couldn't compare to his. The thunder flood dragon will be here soon. Is fellow immortal still hesitating? Xiaohua hastily urged. Aozhan took a deep breath and asked, Speak. Xiaohua smiled like a little fox and said, Immortal friend, you only need to give me a copy of the Jade Eyes book regarding the dragon language. What do you want these Jade Eyes for? Aozhan was truly puzzled. Xiaohua's request was far beyond his expectations. He even kindly reminded him, the dragon language can only be used with a dragon body and dragon chi. Not only is it useless for immortal friend, it's also useless for the demon race. You don't have to worry about what I do. If your dragon palace doesn't have this taboo, fellow immortal can consider giving it to me. Xiaohua hastily pointed and said, the thunder flood dragon will arrive in an instant. There isn't much time left for fellow immortal. Aozhan pondered for a moment, then took out a jade eye from his universe bracelet. He handed it over to Xiaohua as if he was holding a chicken rib and said, Thank you, fellow immortal. After he finished speaking, Aozhan didn't dare to reveal his dragon body and quickly flew towards a place. Fellow immortal, return to the place where the golden-winged Pung and the demon beast were fighting in less than an hour. That place is definitely safe. Seeing Aozhan flying away in a hurry, Xiaohua satisfactorily threw the jade eye to the dragon vein Xiaohua and kindly reminded him. Aozhan, who was flying far away, was slightly stunned. However, he immediately understood in his heart. Without turning his head, he raised his right hand and gave Xiaohua a thumbs up. However, why does the thumb of the dragon claw look like a bent branch? Rumble Xiaohua faintly smiled. Lightning surged around his body and he actually flew towards the Thunder Flood Dragon. Roar the Thunder Flood Dragon opened its big mouth and spat out lightning. However, not only was Xiaohua's escape technique fast, his figure was even more nimble. He practically dodged the lightning in the nick of time. Then, his divine sense struck the Thunder Flood Dragon like a hammer. Without caring whether it succeeded or not, he flew towards the golden-winged prong without turning his head. Roar the Thunder Flood Dragon was once again teased. It couldn't help but become furious. It roared and pounced toward Xiaohua. However, who would have thought that when Xiaohua took the risk to fly closer, he suddenly fell to the ground like a small stone. After that, there was no after that. Because a crazy pillar of fire sprayed towards the Thunder Flood Dragon from the place where Xiaohua disappeared. The Thunder Flood Dragon was caught off guard, and was actually sprayed all over. The Thunder Flood Dragon didn't have the time to look at Xiaohua, who had already used the wood escape technique to quickly escape from the huge tree. Lightning surged around its body and it joined the battle. In no more than a moment, the surrounding several hundred li was a mess. There were countless deep pits on the ground, gravel was everywhere, and chunks of huge trees were lying in disarray. In particular, a chaotic and tyrannical aura was flowing incessantly. There weren't any demonic beasts that would linger in the vicinity. This kind of large-scale battle was not uncommon in the legacy world. It didn't matter who won or lost. The victor would be complacent and take this place as their own territory. However, the victor wouldn't stay here for the time being. They could only return to their lair to recuperate. The wind was calm and the waves were calm just now. Therefore, the instigator, Xiaohua, stealthily used the wind escape technique. His figure stuck close to the ground and flew over. The messy huge rocks and huge trees were the best cover. Xiaohua's soul consciousness also wasn't easily detected by demonic beasts. All of this ensured that he wasn't in any danger for the time being. Damn it, Xiaohua flew while looking for a suitable place to hide. His mouth was still cursing. After flying around randomly, I seem to only know the whereabouts of the holy bloodline. Even if I want to find the other bloodlines, it's impossible. Also, the ground of this legacy world is too shameless. There's actually no way to use the earth escape technique. Thinking about how he wanted to use the earth escape technique after using the wood escape technique, he unexpectedly encountered many small demonic beasts that could attack magic power defense within the huge rocks of the mountain peak. Xiaohua was secretly unhappy. Fellow immortal Xiaohua saw that there was a gap between several huge rocks. Just as he was about to fly over, he heard Ao Zhan's voice. Xiaohua looked up and saw that Ao Zhan's body had shrunk to a very small size, curling up in the gap. If one didn't look carefully, it wouldn't be easy to find him. Hee fellow immortal, you've arrived first. Xiaohua smiled and also flew to the other side of the huge tree. Seeing that it was safe, he hid there. Ao Zhan transmitted his voice. Thank you for your help, fellow immortal. Xiaohua looked at Ao Zhan, thought about the jade eyes in his meridians, and said with a smile, I'm Xiaohua of the Dao sect. I didn't know that fellow immortal Ao was a dragon general of the Dragon Palace. I've offended you. It doesn't matter. Ao Zhan didn't care and said with a smile, the ignorant are not guilty. I'm indeed somewhat similar to the demonic beasts in the Cold Spirit Valley. You can't blame fellow immortal Xiao. Cold Spirit Valley? Xiaohua frowned, but immediately felt relieved. It was indeed normal for the human race and the Dragon Palace to have two names for the same place. After thinking for a while, he felt that although his goal was the same as Ao Zhan's, his bloodline was definitely different. There might not be any conflict. Moreover, Ao Zhan gave Xiaohua a good impression. So Xiaohua probed, when did fellow immortal Ao come in? Can you find the path to that place? That place? Path? Now it was Ao Zhan's turn to be surprised. Ao Zhan wasn't stupid and felt that it was a little strange. He said with a smile, I came with a few fellow immortals. I'm afraid we've been here for several hours. However, I came here to accompany my family's little prince to gain experience. I haven't reached the place that fellow immortal mentioned to gain experience. Oh. Xiaohua rolled his eyes and thought to himself. He had some connections with the Dragon Palace. Previously, there was Xiancheng from the West Sea Dragon Palace, and then there was Ao Shui from the East Sea Dragon Palace. However, Both of them were cunning and weak. They might not know the secrets of the Dragon Palace or the Dragon Island. In particular, Xiaohua and Ao Shuai had some grudges. Xiaohua wanted to shape Little White's body, so he had to deal with the Dragon Palace and find out the secret of shaping the body from the Dragon Palace. Ao Zhan, the Dragon Guard of the East Sea Dragon Palace, didn't look much different from Ao Shuai, but he acted in an open and upright manner. Xiaohua didn't know much about Ao Zhan, but just now, Ao Zhan took out the Thunder Pearl and was willing to lead the Thunder Flood Dragon away. Also, whether the dragon language Jade Eyes was important or not was also important. If it was Xian Cheng or Ao Shuai, they might not have dared to give it to Xiaohua casually. However, this Ao Zhan didn't say anything and gave it to Xiaohua decisively. His position in the Dragon Palace was also very high. Therefore, Xiaohua thought for a moment and made a decision. He asked with a smile. Although this is the first time I met fellow immortal Ao, this Xiao can be sure that when fellow immortal Ao and your young prince entered the Cold Spirit Valley to gain experience, they were brought in by someone else. Oh, or a demon. Ao Zhan's round eyes flashed with a hint of understanding. His ability to escape might not be as good as Xiaohua's, but he was definitely more scheming than Xiaohua. He asked with a smile. Fellow immortal Xiao, do you mean that the demon who brought me in has some secrets about me? This Xiao doesn't dare to say whether there are secrets or not. I wonder if fellow immortal Ao can answer a few questions of this Xiao first? Xiaohua asked with confidence. Of course. Ao Zhan nodded. Fellow immortal Ao, you don't have to tell this Xiao where you came in, but can you tell me how you came in? Xiaohua threw out the first question. Ao Zhan thought for a moment and briefly explained. It seems that the demon who brought fellow immortal Ao in also had a token of this place. Xiaohua said with a smile. I just don't know if he could get the token again after coming in. Was there anything strange on his face? Of course, Ao Zhan said again. Okay, then this Xiao will ask fellow immortal Ao again. Does fellow immortal Ao know a way to let the dragon soul reconstruct the dragon body? Xiaohua asked with a very calm face. Of course. Ao Zhan answered without hesitation. Chapter 3772. However, after answering these two words, Ao Zhan didn't say anything else. Xiaohua, who was at the side, almost stretched out a hand from his ear. The specific method Xiaohua was a little embarrassed. He knew what Ao Zhan meant and asked, Can fellow immortal Ao tell me? No. Ao Zhan shook his head slightly. This is a secret of my Dragon Palace. I can't reveal it. Moreover, I don't know what this has to do with that demon. Of course not. Xiaohua didn't dare to ask more and said with a smile. However, from fellow immortal Ao's analysis, I can conclude that that demon must be hiding something from fellow immortal Ao. As for what purpose, I don't know. Impossible, right? How could he be so daring? Thinking about King Mulu, Ao Zhan didn't dare to believe it and asked in a low voice. If possible, can fellow immortal Xiao tell me what he's hiding? That place, what is it? Speaking up to here, Xiaohua naturally wouldn't hide anything. Moreover, with the original intention of casting a long line to catch a big fish, Xiaohua didn't interrogate Ao Zhan about the secret of the dragon body remodeling, and told him about the legacy world in detail. The legacy world? How is this possible? Ao Shuai's eyes widened and he couldn't help but gasp. The legacy world is just a legend. A legend? Xiaohua asked back with a smile. There's no need for me to say more. Look at the desolate land. There are so many demonic beasts and such large bodies. Can it be a simple place for the demonic race to train? Fellow immortal Xiao should be a human, right? Ao Shuai didn't answer and asked instead. Of course. Xiaohua nodded. Anyone with eyes can see that. Ao Shuai smiled helplessly. Then how did fellow immortal Xiao come in? What does this legacy world have to do with fellow immortal Xiao? Of course I came in with a token. Xiaohua explained. I have a true bloodline and the token was passed down by my ancestors. My ancestors have been looking for the legacy world to purify the bloodline of my clansmen, but they couldn't find it. I was just lucky. I advise fellow immortal to give up on this idea. Ao Zhan smiled and said, This legacy world does have the bloodline of a primordial great demon, but that bloodline is incomparably pure and powerful. Only demons with extremely close bloodlines like us can withstand the violence within. Fellow immortal, you are a human. Although you have the bloodline of the true bloodline, your fleshly body is incomparable to that of us demons. Once you come into contact with the true bloodline, your fleshly body will explode. Fellow immortal, you don't have to worry about that. Xiaohua smiled and said, I'm just asking fellow immortal Ao. I don't have any conflicts of interest with fellow immortal Ao, right? Of course. Ao Zhan said proudly. Even if fellow immortal Xiao obtains the true dragon's blood, don't worry. This Xiao does not covet the true dragon's blood at all. If I obtain it, I can even give it to fellow immortal Ao. Xiaohua's words were ambiguous, making Ao Zhan feel that he knew where the true dragon's blood was. Fellow immortal Xiao, you mean? Ao Zhan narrowed his eyes and looked at Xiaohua thoughtfully. If we cooperate, we will both benefit. If we separate, we will both suffer. Why don't you and I work together? Xiaohua said, hitting the nail on the head. Yes, fellow immortal Xiao is a benevolent and righteous person. Although he likes to take advantage of others, he is trustworthy. Ao Zhan nodded. I feel that this matter can be done all right. Since fellow immortal thinks it can be done, we will discuss it further. When Xiaohua heard Ao Zhan say that he likes to take advantage of others, he couldn't help but mutter in his heart. However, he still smiled and said, Fellow immortal, you can tell me who the demon that brought you here is. We can discuss how to deal with it. When Ao Zhan just said the name of the Stag King, Xiaohua looked as if he had seen a ghost. He immediately thought of Ao Shuai and almost lost his voice. Fellow immortal Ao. You didn't come with Ao Shuai, right? Oh, fellow immortal Xiao knows the inspector of my East Sea Dragon Palace? Ao Zhan was slightly stunned. Is there a rat beside you? Xiaohua was completely convinced. Ao Zhan nodded. Forget it, Xiaohua sighed. Really, enemies are bound to meet. Since Xiaohua wanted to cooperate with Ao Zhan, he naturally couldn't hide it. He briefly explained the previous matter. Ao Zhan didn't have any strange expression. He nodded and said, So fellow immortal and Ao Shuai have such a relationship. I only know about the star-picking tower's dragon bone, and the longevity guarding Paradise River. I didn't know that fellow immortal Xiao was also involved. Fellow immortal Zhao's words also confirmed what Ao Shuai said. This matter is very important to my dragon palace. Compared to these matters, fellow immortal Zhao's conflict with Ao Shuai is nothing. As for old demon Jifeng, he is just a little rat. It's fine to ignore him. Good. Xiaohua was very happy. He smiled and said, Then let us discuss how to get the true blood. Of course we have to discuss. Ao Zhan said with a double meaning. We might even need fellow immortal Zhao's help. He understood. Once Xiaohua heard Ao Zhan's words, he knew that the so-called East Sea Dragon Palace's young prince was involved. He had never seen any bullshit young prince. That young prince might be able to help him, but who told Xiaohua to have no fate with the young prince? The two communicated with each other for almost an hour. Sure enough, no demon beasts came to disturb them in this messy land. After the two finished their discussion, they rested for a meal. Gradually, slightly smaller demon beasts appeared in the surroundings. Fellow immortal Ao, I'm leaving. In a while we will act according to our previous agreement. Xiaohua released his soul awareness. After a moment, he said in a low voice, Fellow immortal, there seems to be a vermilion bird coming over from your left. It must be the Zhumei that fellow immortal mentioned. This demon beast was invited by the Stag King. I don't know if she already knows about the Stag King's scheme. You better not tell him. Ao Zhan didn't dare to release his soul awareness. He was a bit curious as to how Xiaohua knew about Zhumei's arrival. This was because he didn't sense Xiaohua releasing his soul awareness. However, this wasn't what he was most curious about. He transmitted his voice again. Fellow immortal Xiao, you and I don't need to make a demon alliance or a blood oath? Xiaohua knew that the demon alliance was the same as the scholarly oath and the Dao sect's blood oath. They were all guarantees when forming an alliance. He smiled and said, If I didn't believe fellow immortal Ao, I wouldn't have met fellow immortal Ao. However, since you believe me, I'm not afraid that fellow immortal will go back on his word. After all, this matter is led by me. Fellow immortal Ao, do you think you will go back on your word? Ao Zhan hesitated and nodded slightly. If fellow immortal Xiao doesn't go back on his word, I probably won't. However, the human race has always been cunning. Without an alliance, I'm a bit worried. Haha, I don't dare to talk about other people, but this is the first and only time that fellow immortal Ao will cooperate with the Demon League. After saying that, Xiaohua's figure swayed, and he went in the opposite direction of Zhu Mei. Ao Zhan slightly raised his head and looked in the direction Xiaohua disappeared. A smile appeared in his eyes. This guy seems stingy and calculative, but he's actually so straightforward when it comes to important matters. This really makes me curious. However, not cooperating with the Demon Alliance, it doesn't seem to affect me much, right? Roar Ao Zhan roared in a low voice and released his origin sense. In the distance, although Zhu Mei wasn't as miserable as Ao Zhan, she still seemed to be a bit cautious. When she heard Ao Zhan's voice and sensed his origin sense, she hurriedly sped up and rushed to Ao Zhan's side. When she saw the emotions in the surroundings, Zhu Mei's expression changed slightly. She asked in surprise, General Ao, you're seriously injured? What kind of demonic beast did you fight with? Ao Zhan came out from his hiding place and waved his hand. I'm not that strong. This is the result of a fight between a golden-winged roc and a thunder flood dragon, as well as a few other demonic beasts. See, golden-winged roc. When someone as strong as Zhu Mei heard this, she shrunk her neck that couldn't be seen. As a member of the Vermilion Bird clan, how could she not know how strong a roc was? She then looked at Ao Zhan and smiled bitterly. General Ao, you're really lucky to be able to escape from the claws of the golden-winged roc. Fortunately, this golden-winged roc isn't a pure roc. It might have some of the golden-winged roc's bloodline. Ao Zhan also had a lingering fear. He looked into the distance and said, we haven't even started training yet, but we've already encountered so many demonic beasts. What do you think we should do next? Although Ao Zhan didn't look at Zhu Mei, he glanced at her from the corner of his eyes and waited for her reaction. Zhu Mei didn't notice. She didn't have eyelids or eyebrows, so there was no obvious expression on her face. She replied, I don't know either. Let's go find the Stag King first and see what arrangements he has. However, it seems that this Cold Spirit Valley is a bit strange. It's not particularly suitable for training. Oh, maybe. The Stag King said that this is where the Sun Devourer demons train. It's normal for these demonic beasts to be so strong. Then what about the so-called reward? Ao Zhan probed again. Zhu Mei also withdrew her origin sense and said curiously, of course it's the demonic cores of these demonic beasts. Could there be something else? Damn it, Ao Zhan cursed. Do you think we can kill the Thunder Flood Dragon? Even without the Thunder Flood Dragon, we can still kill demonic beasts with the strength of hair removal, intelligence opening, and light gathering. Zhu Mei seemed a little excited. These demonic beasts don't cultivate. They purely rely on the power of the stars and moon. Their naturally formed demonic cores, skin, flesh, and blood are all good things. If they don't cultivate, they don't have the qualifications to be included in the ranks of hair removal, intelligence opening, and light gathering. Ao Zhan sneered, knowing Zhu Mei's plan. Zhu Mei's beak moved up and down, as if she was smacking her lips. She was very disdainful of the Dragon Clan's arrogance. Of course, the Dragon Clan was included in the ancient Demon Clan. However, no one in the Demon Clan today knew why the Dragon Clan separated from the Demon Clan. However, it was obvious that the Dragon Clan looked down on the ordinary Demon Clan and was unwilling to be associated with them. Everyone could see their arrogance. Where's the Mulu King? Ao Zhan asked again. Where did you agree to wait with him? Like you, we were separated. We were in a hurry and didn't agree to a place. Zhu Mei looked at some low-level demonic beasts in the distance and said, it's just a general direction. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.